That's always good. All right, let's open the meeting on the 22nd of April for the Finance and Performance Committee. Can we stand for the opening karakia, please? Great. Welcome along, everyone, to our meeting. Firstly, we've got apologies from Councillor Harrison Hunt, Councillor Donovan and Councillor Johansson. Nathaniel looks like he's happy to move them, and Mark looks like he's happy to second them. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great. Declarations of interest. We'll just go through these. So we've got quite a few today. Item 10 is the Akaroa one, is the Mayor. Item 12, the museum, is David and Melanie. Item 13 around the draft statements of intent for Rod Donald is Tyrone. Civic building is myself, Victoria and Vic, and Tim will chair that item, so that's great. And then Aaron and Tyrone for venue Zod Tahi. For Christchurch NZ, we've got Vic and Jake.
Me also for civic building. You just said Vic's name twice.
Oh, we've actually removed you off it this morning. So that's okay.
I wish that was the case.
Yeah, me too. Not you, me. Okay, item 16, Christchurch City Holdings is Mel, as well as the statement of intent, and then the director's fees, item 17, is Melanie as well. So just so we're all clear on that. I don't know if there's any others from anyone.
Plains, it's in there, isn't it?
Central Plains?
Yes, Central Plains.
You're on that, Pauline, aren't you? Yep.
Yep.
And then just to advise that the notice of motion, thanks Mary, has been withdrawn. Item 19, I think it was, which was the fossil fuel advertising sponsorship and partnership, so we won't deal with that, just so everyone's aware. All right. Now we've got confirmation of the previous minutes. And just so everyone's aware, we'll do, the order this morning is going to be hear the deputations on Akaroa, then we're going to do our 3 standard reports, and then there's a timing issue with CCHL and their SOI, so they're going to come and do that. Then we'll do Akaroa at that point, and then we'll, I think that's the plan. I don't think VO are changing, are they? So we should be at this stage okay. And we'll break at 1 o'clock for lunch, and ideally 11 for a break. So just so everyone's clear on what we're doing today, and we'll just see how it goes. So there's the previous minutes, item number 3, which I'm happy to move and Jake's happy to second. All in favour? Against? That's carried. And then the public forum, we don't have any, David. So we'll skip past that, which then brings us to deputations by appointment. So just so everyone's really clear, we've obviously got a few of these today. The rule is that it's 10 minutes. It'll be 10 minutes on the dot. So if people have, if they want time for questions, they need to stop within their 10 minutes so that the council can ask questions. If not, we'll be moving on. So just so everyone's really clear, if you want, rule of thumb, if you want to talk for 5 minutes and you want 5 minutes of questions, or up to 5 minutes of questions, you can go for it. If you want to talk for 10 minutes, there won't be time for questions. So we'll start, we'll move to deputations in relation to item number 10, the Akaroa Wastewater cost reduction opportunities. And I'd like to welcome Lee Robinson and Bruce McLean up first. And I think you've got a presentation, so they're going to put that up on the screen as well. And you'll see the timer up there, and I'll let you know at 8 minutes. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and councillors. Appreciate the opportunity this morning. Bruce will present most of the information contained in the overhead. We are here representing a number of individuals in Akaroa. We've had properties in Akaroa between 40 and 70 years. We love the place, we're passionate about it, and we're here because we don't want to see it ruined. Thank you. Bruce.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think the presentation has been distributed, but I'll go through it verbatim. The first point I'd like to make is the Akaroa community is strongly opposed to the land-based option. As the community's become to better understand the land-based wastewater scheme, has become strongly opposed. Of the submissions of the recent consent process, 94% were opposed, with support primarily from Ngāi Tahu and people who had sold the land for irrigation. Opposition numbers have continued to grow since then. Primary reasons for the opposition are escalating costs, the significant negative impact on Akaroa's recreational hub, discharges into Children's Bay of untreated and treated wastewater, significant traffic disruption of 2 to 3 years during construction, and the high ongoing operating costs. Its design has been fraught from its inception, and its implementation will be disastrous for the community. The land-based scheme is a one-of-a-kind project that's over-reliant on many constantly changing and sensitive factors. These include wildly varying inflows, inadequate storage, sensitive soils, small pipes traversing streams, slips and roads and being buried in the main access to Akaroa, irrigation soils that are sensitive to moisture, and maintaining millions of drippers amongst kānuka trees and constant maintenance. Incredibly, to date, the terminal pump station has been sited on Akaroa's former rubbish dump, and the treatment plant is sited on an active slip. It's no wonder the design has been constantly changing. Council costs for the land-based scheme are no longer credible. They have increased 300% since 2020 and will continue to increase despite attempted savings, and the design is still at only a preliminary stage. The costs can be expected to continue increasing as the design is developed through developed design, detailed design, etc. The 2.7 kilometre harbour outfall has been rejected previously in a consent application for cultural reasons. It's a smaller version of the ocean outfall and is obviously cheaper. However, it's likely to be resisted by some members of the community, and including iwi. Consents would potentially be more difficult to obtain than for the ocean-based outfall based on new WEPS standards. Pragmatically, we as a group would accept this alternative if the council wished to adopt it, but we do not think it is the best solution. An ocean outfall is the only viable, resilient option in our opinion, and it would be, in our opinion again, supported by the community. Unlike the land-based scheme, the ocean outfall is a repeat project with plenty of other similar projects around New Zealand. The contractor that's provided costs to the council, McConnell Dowell, has undertaken most of these projects, including in the Littleton Harbour and New Brighton. Their estimated costs and methodology can be relied on. The outfall consists of a robust, welded, 350mm polyethylene pipe. It has twice the capacity of the land-based pipe and will handle any conceivable flow well into the future. The council has not attempted to optimise this option. For example, potentially the pipe does not need to be buried as indicated by Becca for the full length of the harbour. I'll make the point, it was made by my daughter actually, that the Cook Strait cable is not buried. That's the HVDC line that connects our two islands, and it is critical infrastructure. This option is far more favourable to the environment. According to the council's independent consultant, Becca, the discharge would likely be not detectable in the ocean. It has a dilution factor of 385 to 1, and that's 1 of treated wastewater, and it does not take into account the dilution impact of the Southland Current, which flows from 1 to 2 knots around the peninsula. In an emergency, untreated wastewater could be discharged through the ocean outfall. That's far better than the land-based scheme, which discharges into Children's Bay. According to the Ministry of Health, 74%, sorry, that's the Ministry of Environment, that should be, 74% of treated wastewater is discharged into the ocean in New Zealand, including in Christchurch and Waimakariri. The ocean outfall is cheaper than the land-based option if estimated costs are treated the same. Council has added costs to the ocean outfall estimates that are not needed. For example, the council has added 15% for professional fees, which is unreasonably high given that McDonnell Dowell are offering a design-build solution. And a contingency of 50% has been applied to all of the ocean outfall costs, which is excessive compared to the land-based option. McConnell Dowell have already included contingencies of about 30%, and the council is applying 50% on top of that. We have contingency on top of contingency. The geotechnical risk for the marine pipeline is relatively low compared to the land-based option, and contingencies should reflect that. The ocean outfall will have far lower operational costs than a land-based scheme, and this is not reflected in the operational costs provided by council. The ocean outfall best meets the requirements of the Local Government Water Services Act 2025. In our view, the ocean outfall best meets these requirements to provide water services that are reliable, resilient to external factors, for example climate change, are of a quality that meets consumer expectations and meet all regulatory requirements. And it ensures that water services are provided in a cost-effective and financially sustainable manner, which we don't think the land-based scheme does. The ocean outfall should at least be kept as an option at this stage. In summary, it is more acceptable to the community, it's cheaper to build and run, it's more resilient with double the capacity, and it's far better for the environment. It needs proper consideration, not just treated like a long list item that can be dismissed with loaded costs. I've just got a couple of comments that I thought about overnight about the consents. We're not sure about the consent process and where it goes from here. We believe for the land-based scheme, further consultation and a consent application will be required. And to be honest, the consent process so far has been a shambles. There are still 48 unanswered questions from commissioners from the last process. We suspect that the treatment plant will need a new consent when it is moved to the hay paddock, and this begs the question, is it in the right place? There are other options. Te Kao Bay, that has been mentioned, it certainly has merit if an ocean outfall was chosen. And finally, we think that the council should understand that any decision that it takes that is not well founded could well be subject to a review by the Commerce Commission or other review body or bodies. And that's.
Now you've got two minutes left if you want. If you've got anything else.
All I'd say, councillors, is that in reference to the Act, there is an obligation on this council to make sure that there is a resilient, cost-effective and financially sustainable model. We don't believe the numbers that have been presented are anywhere near what they should be. The ocean outfall is a sustainable and cheaper version than anything before the council at the moment. It should at least be left on the table. That's a statutory obligation on this council, and we urge you to consider it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both very much for that presentation. We've got a minute, and I think Melanie might have a question, and then we'll move on.
You've mentioned, thanks for the coming along, sorry, you've mentioned that the ocean outfall is better for the environment. I was just wondering if you can explain how.
The land-based scheme has a number of fragile elements to it, and in particular, as the storage decreases, there will be more discharges into Children's Bay, and Children's Bay is not a good place to put discharges. It doesn't flush particularly well. It's the centre of recreation in Akaroa, and with an ocean outfall, the dilution factors I mentioned are 385 to 1. That's 1 litre of treated wastewater for every 385 litres of water, of ocean water, and as Becca said, it will not be detectable on the surface. The outfall. It's just such a big environment out there, 40 metres deep. So, and untreated wastewater, if there was a failure of any part of the system, can be taken out into the open ocean. So. All
right, that's great. We've just come to the end of the time, so thank you both very much, and we'll consider the item later in the day. So thank you for coming in. Can I invite Suki Thompson in on behalf of the Friends of the Banks Peninsula group, please? Great, thank you. And same time applies.
Right, well, thank you very much for having us along. My name's Suki Thompson. My colleague Brent Martin will be presenting today on behalf of the Akaroa Environmental Society, Friends of Banks Peninsula. Our presentation has been circulated to various other groups in Akaroa and endorsed by the Akaroa Civic Trust, the Akaroa Ratepayers Association, and the Robinsons Bay Ratepayers Association. So we've been involved in this project for a long time, 10 years, reading and analysing every technical document. Our work has picked up multiple critical errors along the way that have been subsequently validated by CCC experts and hearing expert conferencing, and we have very wide public support demonstrated by the amount of money people have donated to fund additional external experts to support our case at the hearing. First of all, we want to say the INI is not under control. That statement was made at your meeting last week. We've had a look at the total volume of wastewater per annum in Akaroa, and as you can see from that chart, in 2025 it's just as high as it was in 2018. Our view of the cost-cutting proposals, first of all, we're actually glad that harbour outfall is back on the table again. It is tried and trusted technology. It will be resilient to climate change because it is not affected by the INI, simple to operate and more consentable under the WEPs. We think moving the treatment plant, while the idea may have merit in some ways, it is going to be highly visible from Akaroa and will need reconsenting. But really, we are concerned about those new land-based options. What they're doing is reducing the land area, adding all the water from devotional into the smaller area of land, greatly increasing the irrigation load on the Robinsons Bay sites. 10 years of engineering work has just been thrown out, and the rates have now been doubled over what was previously deemed the safe level. So how can you have experts telling you it's the safe level is one set of irrigation figures, and then, because the WEPs required you to throw out a lot of land because it was too steep, suddenly you can just double the rates, and that's a safe level? We think this really needs proper looking at. We are glad that 7.8 hectares of steep land has been removed, but we are concerned that 6 hectares of remote land that is on little plateaus with steep down slopes and then steep land above the next one is still included. So we think there's another further 6 hectares of dubious land in this proposal. So the cost cutting exacerbates all the risks of land-based irrigation. Irrigation to natives on sloping ground hasn't been tried anywhere else. The irrigation is to occur year-round to the point where soils are saturated, but soils on the peninsula suffer from slips when they are subjected to prolonged wet conditions, and irrigating to saturation also increases the risk of nitrogen pollution from runoff into the streams. Everything increases with intense climate change storms, and that irrigation system is going to be very complicated to manage. We've had a look at the cost saving for your land-based options. And we note that the staff have chosen option 1, which only saves $26 million. It's a really small proportion of that overall cost. It's still a very expensive system. They've chosen that rather than option 2 with the less storage because of the small difference on the overflow days. But what we want to point out to you is that these overflow days that are being reported don't match reality on the ground. So the important thing to understand about discharge to land is that it relies on the soil absorbing the water like a sponge and the plants taking it up. It's got to cease when the ground is saturated, otherwise it just runs off into the streams. Now, the council stated in its application that it would not irrigate beyond that saturation point, but the modelling of the overflows doesn't take that into account. The modelling of the overflows just assumes irrigation ceases when 50 millimetres of rain has fallen and then starts again the next dry day. Have a look at that image that we've got there on the screens. That's the Robinsons Bay irrigation site 8 days after the rain ceased after a major storm. The ground is absolutely saturated. Now, had the tanks been full at that point, which they are likely to have been, you've got 8 more days when overflows would have been occurring than is counted for in the simplistic modelling. And so there are going to be more overflows than the council's stating, and that overflow discharge is essential backup for some sort of field failure like a major slip. So our real concern is that the proposed short overflow into Children's Bay is utterly repugnant to the community. Discharge to water bodies relies on dilution, but this proposed 300-metre Children's Bay overflow is only going out into water that is 1 metre deep at the head of a poorly flushing shallow bay. And by contrast, the current outfall from the current plant, although it's only 100 metres long, because it's out of the bay, it's into deep water 6 metres deep and in that main current. So contaminants from this outfall are going to accumulate in mud flats and that is in the heart of the Akaroa Marine Recreational Area. A lot of public contact with the water, paddle boarding, kayaking, jet skiing, boat launching. Not a good place for an outfall. So we think the essential component of any land-based system now is to extend that overflow pipe further out into the harbour where it hits the deep water. We've got an example here, extending it by a kilometre, 1,000 metres out, gets you into the deep water, gets you into the main flow channel. And that wouldn't cost more than 5.9 million absolute tops, and that's applying the harbour outfall per metre cost, which includes all the fixed costs as well. So it'll be cheaper than that. We really want you to look at that, a longer overflow pipe. So our conclusion is that moving the treatment plant will be controversial. The land-based options with their cost-cutting present an unacceptable risk that must be mitigated by a longer overflow pipe. And therefore, we're led to the conclusion that at this stage, the only safe, feasible option presented is that mid-harbour outfall. We do understand the cultural concerns, but we feel that the geography, soils, climate change, I&I, and high cost of the land-based disposal make it increasingly impractical and too high a risk for the council to take. So what we're recommending is less haste, peer review, community input. Don't cherry pick the LGA. Mana whenua considerations have to be balanced with other matters, including community views. The Water Services Act requires you to provide water services that are resilient to climate change and act in the best interests of the current and future communities, so not saddling them with debt and a risky system. And your own strategic priorities require you to build trust and confidence in the council by listening to residents and working with Ngāi Tahu to achieve outcomes that benefit the whole community. So we don't support any of the options that you're putting forward at the moment, and we request full public disclosure of all the technical information behind the options. We have been receiving information in avalanches over the last 2 days, but nothing that really goes through those overflows. A meeting between Friends of Banks Peninsula and the wastewater staff to go through detailed questions, and then a public meeting where the council can communicate its intentions to the public of Akaroa and receive feedback before making any decisions on our
You've got
behalf.
2 minutes now. So.
And I'm stopping right now.
Oh, you're more than welcome to keep going if you like, but...
All done.
Okay,
Questions,
great.
please.
Thank you. Hey, look, I think that's really useful to get that feedback, and I know you've been working on it a lot as well. So I just want to understand a bit more, because I think Tyrone might have some stuff later in the day around the investigation of the additional pipe out. So do you want to just skip back a slide? So what you're effectively saying is that, look, in a perfect world, you would prefer it to go right out you'd go mid-harbour as the preferred solution, just so I've got it clear in my mind. But if we're trying to get a way forward, knowing we've gone through all the hearings panels and everything like that, you'd like us at the very least to look at whether we can extend that pipe. Is that...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you extend that pipe so that you've got an overflow that is actually a safe and practical overflow,
Yep.
then you cover off a lot of the risks with the land-based system.
Okay.
And you do also give yourself that backup if
Yep.
things go completely wrong with it in the future. So, and then you can also be more cautious about your irrigation on things like, for example, the dodgy 6 hectares that
Yep.
we're talking about.
Okay, no, that's really useful. Now, the other one that was mentioned, and I didn't get a chance to ask Lee and the team about it, was just there was one around the disruption to the road. Do you have a view on whether, because I know in this, I don't take any credit for this because it's the mayor who's another one of his ideas, which is good to have a look at, is potentially around having the pipe that goes around so we don't have to dig the whole road up. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there are alternatives to digging the road up. There are different different routes you could take it by land, and there's different routes you could take it by sea.
So you're asking in the sense that as long as we investigate that stuff, so we can look at making sure we've got some safety in the system, that's almost a way forward. I know it's not your preference, but I'm just trying to understand where you're getting
it
to.
is, and I think the other thing, I would like to flag some of those suggestions about cutting public access. Terrible idea. Public access will keep an eye on this remote system for you, and also moving the entrance so that it goes across the Sawmill Heritage Site in Robinsons Bay is really insulting to our cultural heritage. So some of those minor cost-cutting measures that were proposed, absolute no-nos.
Okay, and I guess just because we're already at that time. Just the point to make is that whatever decision we get to today, your engagement with the council staff won't stop. So take it from us that they'll continue to work with you as well and keep you in the loop on what progresses. So I just want to give you that assurance. So look, thank you for coming in. We are at the end of the time, but I do appreciate the time and effort you've put into this.
Right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can I invite up Bronwyn Hayward, please, who nearly ran me over in the car park this morning?
It was an electric car in my defence.
Yeah. Hey, so
I'm
was,
not sure if that makes it better.
I was going to say, so was mine.
So I'm very glad.
Actually, yeah, that would have made it worse.
I'm very glad the chair is still here and I didn't back into him as he's running up the stairs. Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Bronwyn Hayward. I'm a professor of politics and public policy at UC, and I specialise in environment and climate change and also city politics. I'm speaking in both a personal and professional capacity. Personally, my husband and I have a batch at Akaroa at the Takamatua Valley, and we were married in Akaroa at my parents-in-law's farm 32 years ago. And so, as Bob Parker once said, we're all here because we love Akaroa. And everyone wants the very best outcomes for the future. But I'm also here professionally. I've had rather more than I expected of exposure to wastewater debates when I've looked at politics over the years. And when I first began my PhD, one of the cases I followed was the Christchurch wastewater treatment public outreach in Pegasus Bay. And then over the last 10 years, I've taken literally hundreds of undergraduate and graduate students through this case, and I'm very grateful to everyone from Friends of Banks Peninsula to Ngāi Tahu, to councillors, to community who've helped the students understand this case. Because as you will know, it has everything that is both difficult and wonderful about New Zealand politics in this microcosm. So on the upside, it's made all the textbooks, and it's an amazing decision that you're making, and it is really difficult because it involves a very significant historical site. Some have called it the Waitangi of the South Island. It is an incredibly challenging landscape you're working on, volcanic and steep, and technically challenging engineering decisions. It's a site of immense economic, tourism, and ecological and recreation value. And it's in a place with communities who care passionately. What I'd like to do is suggest that we just step back for a moment and think about why we love this area. Akaroa Harbour, I want to argue, is Canterbury's Blue Stadium. It's our cultural, ecological, tourism, recreation, and ocean economy icon. The government asks you to make cost-effective, resilient decisions, and the community does too. But this requires the same kind of courage, vision, and commitment to our region that you've taken over our city stadium. The stadium, Te Kaha, cost $683 million, with a cost overrun, which I know you bear the pain for, of $150 million. But it is a bold and creative, even if it was a highly debated decision to have taken for our city. It's estimated to generate $50 million a year in revenue by Christchurch NZ. And the government is prepared to put aside millions to attract new acts to Christchurch for this kind of economy boost. If we think about Akaroa Harbour as our Blue Stadium, it has a huge impact on our economy, on our recreation, on our tourism, business and employment. We know that the impact of dolphin tourism alone, of just 7 companies, is now at $27 million a year in revenue, and 560 jobs in the wider region. And that's not including our aquaculture, our effects of things like Akaroa salmon, our cruise ship, our land-based tourism. In our ageing population, this area becomes more and more important as a source of passive recreation and recovery. So this is a site in which we want to think carefully about making a premium investment in decisions. Past generations took what we now regard as a horrendous decision to put a waste treatment centre on a site of a massacre. We have to be very careful that we're not making the modern equivalent of that kind of decision, because we simply aren't taking into account wider considerations. We have to be very careful about the land use and make sure that land disposal is safe. But all these options have risk. This is really a hard decision, and it's one that national government doesn't have to live with. We literally live with each other. We bang into each other in the car parks. We meet in the supermarkets. The mayor has a place here. I have a place here. We have friends and people we love on both sides of this debate. But I would say it hasn't been a very even debate, because the council has found itself having to take the role of the passive bystander. So there are two things that have happened. If you talk to Christchurch, if you talk to Akaroa businesses, the difficulty, the huge bonus of merging Christchurch, NZ, and putting Christchurch and Akaroa under the same umbrella has been that we're enabled to have an excellent wastewater system. But it does mean that the promotion of the tourism and the recreational values of Akaroa compared to, say, Hamner is lost, because Christchurch NZ and our tourism strategies have to now focus on the region, on our collective city. And Akaroa and the way that it creates a huge business opportunity and a huge prop for our region is lost from visibility. Our other problem is the Akaroa Mail, which I absolutely love and are grateful for, but it has just not had any visibility of the bigger vision of why we're doing this. Endless opposition has meant that we haven't had a chance to think through, well, what are we doing here as a community? So, and I blame myself. I haven't had an opportunity and should have taken the opportunity to write a bit more balance. And I think academics, we need to get off the fence. It's great that my students understand how complex this decision is, but the community needs to too. And there are no good decisions. But when I think back to the decisions and the debate that I was privileged to listen to when we were trying to decide what to do with Christchurch City, I remember, and I hope he doesn't mind me quoting him, Peter Townsend nearly brokered it for the city. He said, "We are so close. After years and years of community debate, we were so close. And at the last minute, the City Council panicked and opted for a cheaper option." And I just think one of the great things about a democracy is that it enables us to listen to each other and find ideas that we haven't thought of before. We are now so close. With our land-based options, we have the opportunity to have a premium investment in an icon for this region and a huge economic and ecological and cultural backbone. So I would really like you to think carefully about how we could achieve that and achieve what we all want, which is a better future for our grandchildren and those who come after us. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much, Bronwyn. Does anyone have any questions? No? Very, very clear. Thank you. Great. Andy Thompson from DOC. Welcome along.
Morena koutou.
Great, so we'll hand over to you. Same rules as everyone else.
Thank you. Kia ora. Ko Andy Thompson taka waingoa. I represent the Department of Conservation here today, and part of my duties and responsibilities are to advocate for and look after, and including statutory responsibilities, the Banks Peninsula Marine Mammal Sanctuary that surrounds Banks Peninsula and our coastline, the marine reserves that are inside Akaroa Harbour and just outside Akaroa Harbour, and also the marine mammals that live in Akaroa Harbour and around Akaroa Harbour. For these reasons, the department does not support disposal of waste into the harbour itself, and we do support the land-based options, and we've got two clear reasons for doing this. The first relates to Hector's dolphins, and I just want to explain a little bit about how they use the harbour. and how they use that surrounding landscape. And the second is economic. So the first point I want to make is around Hector's dolphin. There are around 1,500 hectares dolphin that use Banks Peninsula, and most of those dolphin at times use the harbour. There are 15,000 hectares dolphins that occupy New Zealand, and they are endemic to New Zealand. They are classified as nationally vulnerable, and Akaroa Harbour is a real stronghold for them. They use the harbour for feeding and rearing young. There is regular calving inside the harbour, and these behaviours require calm, accessible habitat, conditions that Akaroa Harbour naturally provides. They use the midpoint of the harbour traditionally and most of all. The second key point I wanted to make was economic, and I think Bronwyn and I are using the same figures, although hers are inflation adjusted. I suspect we're both referring to this study here that was done in 2018, and it was commissioned by Black Cat on the value of the dolphin industry in Akaroa Harbour. It was valued, as Bronwyn says, in 2018 at $22 million per annum, supporting between 430 and 500 jobs. So for those two reasons, I don't think it makes sense to continue to threaten Akaroa Harbour with a disposal to water option. That's my submission, nice and short.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in for that. Aaron?
Yeah, so does DOC have a position on the overflow days, especially into Children's Bay? That would seem to contradict your submission.
I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to review all the technical detail.
Right, okay. So because what was raised by the Friends of Banks Peninsula was the number of overflow days into the harbour, into Children's Bay, and that would seem to contradict the DOC's position.
Yeah, sorry.
And then also, so then what's
our
DOC's
position is sort of stepping back.
Aaron, hang on, just let him answer. Yeah.
Our position is really just stepping back and looking at options in terms of whether you want to dispose of wastewater into the harbour directly or dispose to land and then deal with the overflow.
Right, treated wastewater.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, from what I've been told, the treatment at Akaroa is going to be higher than the treatment in Christchurch, which we put out into Pegasus Bay. So DOC must be opposed to what we do in Christchurch as well.
Different situation, I think. We're dealing with an enclosed waterway versus an open waterway. And as I've experienced, they're quite different situations, particularly when you're dealing with hazards and oils and things like that.
Cool, thank you.
We've got Mark and then Melanie.
Thank you, and thank you for coming in. Interested to hear your thoughts on ocean outfall from DOC's point of view. Is that equally as...
I think the devil's in the detail, and it depends how far we're talking about as an ocean outfall. If it's just outside the heads, then we're in key habitat, and in fact you could be either in or adjacent to the Akaroa Marine Reserve, and I'm not actually sure that's legal, so I've got a legal question there. If it's way further out, then there's obviously less risk.
Thank you.
Melanie.
So what you explained about the Hector's dolphins and the calving, you said that mainly happens in the mid-harbour area, is that correct? So what's the concern with the interaction if there was a mid-harbour outfall and calving of Hector's dolphins? So do you think they'd move somewhere else, or even, like what's the concern exactly?
Yeah, look, the dolphins suffer from a range of threats. Those threats have included everything from sedimentation in the harbour, loss of food sources because of the sedimentation. It includes the sheer amount of boat traffic in the harbour and even cruise ships in the harbour that have created sedimentation and noise in the harbour. ECAN and DOC have done a lot of work to remove some of those threats. The species diversity in the harbour is significantly lower now than it used to be. So I'm just seeking to advocate for less threats to Hector's dolphins in the harbour.
We're all good? Excellent. Hey, thank you for coming in. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Great karakia this morning, kind of appropriate.
Okay, next up I've got Kath Reid and Chris McGill. Please.
Good morning, and thank you for hearing our submissions today. My name is Kathleen Reid, and I reside permanently in Takamatua between Robinsons Bay and Akaroa. I was a member of the council-initiated Akaroa Treated Wastewater Reuse Options Working Party, which ran from 2017 for nearly 4 years, and I have continued to follow the project closely. I do not belong to any society except the Takamatua Residents Association. But as we live in a small community, I do mix with and have friends within a wide circle. It is clear that a harbour outfall is not favoured, as many are concerned about water quality, especially for swimming. Negative public reaction following 2 concerning incidents which occurred recently bear this out. There was the oil spill from the Takaha and the grounding of a dolphin watch catamaran. The establishment of a mid-harbour outfall pipe would require commercial-level marine construction with all the possible risks of damage or failure as outlined in the council documents. A large vessel laying a pipe to release wastewater mid-harbour is not a good look. Being a regular volunteer in the information centre, I have interaction with visitors, which has highlighted to me the importance of the harbour as being central to Akaroa's attraction. A high proportion of visitors inquire about harbour trips, dolphin watching and walking to scenic spots. Others simply enjoy the beachside cafes and sea views. Akaroa is a tourist town, basing much of its appeal on the natural environment, beauty, history, landscapes and conservation efforts. QE2 covenants, pest-free Banks Peninsula Conservation Trust covenants, Rod Donald Trust, Ture reintroduction, Hinawai, concerted efforts by farmers and landowners to plant natives along with numerous walking tracks all contribute to the special nature appreciating environment of Banks Peninsula. A wastewater pipe discharging into the harbour is an anathema to this. Native reforestation in Robinsons Bay is not. There are 3 marine conservation mechanisms existing in Akaroa Harbour. The Banks Peninsula Marine Mammal Sanctuary, established 1988, Akaroa Harbour Taipere, established 2006, and the Akaroa Marine Reserve, 2014. Each one of these mechanisms involved many years of dedication and hard work. They were hard won, and their status deserves respect and should not be sullied with wastewater outflows, no matter how clean the water may be. Robinsons Bay was cloaked with ancient forest until the 1880s, when the sawmillers clear-felled the hillsides. In 2006, we now have an opportunity to right this historical wrong, which by our modern standards was lacking in foresight. The newly planted trees there are doing well thanks to a damp summer, and so are off to a good start. In May 2023, Christchurch City Council declared a climate emergency with a goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2045. The current Robinsons Bay scheme will store 8,900 tonnes of carbon over 35 years, while a harbour outfall would emit 1,300 tonnes of carbon. Clearly, the land-based option is preferable from a carbon sequestration viewpoint. I urge the Council to honour its own carbon reduction resolution and for councillors today to vote for option 1 of the 4 choices presented by Council staff. Every year the project is delayed costs the community. While some voices may want you to delay the project further, all ratepayers deserve timely infrastructure decisions and delivery. Please don't allow inflation to lift prices even further. Thank you. And Chris is sharing my time.
Great, go for it.
Kia ora all. My name is Chris McGill and I live in Takamatua and I've lived there for 8 years. I'm here personally. However, my involvement in the community includes being part of the Takamatua Environmental and Kaitiakitanga group, which is a subcommittee of the Takamatua Ratepayers Association. Since 2018, we have been involved in the restoration of the biodiversity in our catchment. In that time, we've partnered alongside CCC, ECAN and Onuku to achieve significant improvements in this area. Te Kore Atakoa, a climate change and adaptation and resilient 200-year project that Onuku is leading. I have been involved in various wānanga hui and conferences in relation to this project. And I was also on the community reference group for the ATWIS scheme. This group was convened by the council at the end of 2020, and a group of 5 community members from Robinsons Bay, Takamatua and Akaroa met in 21 and 22. The scope for this reference group was not to propose alternatives, but how to raise and mitigate issues for their communities. And part of that was changing the pond in Robinsons Bay to tanks, and from tanks to covered tanks for the storage of the treated wastewater. As Bronwyn has already said, Akaroa is a destination. It's a jewel in the CCC crown. Without the harbour, it's a road to nowhere. Option 1 appears to be what is being recommended today. However, it's already a significant reduction to the original design. While further reduction may have the allure of being more affordable, this can be at the expense of sustainability, as these marginal savings can simply become significantly greater costs for future councils. So whatever option is chosen, the design should preserve a cost-effective ability to expand the system if and when needed, e.g. population growth, especially by retaining all the land and building the underlying infrastructure needed for future expansion. I've looked at the agenda for this Finance and Performance Committee today, and on page 2, various goals of the council is presented. Under the heading of Green and Livable in the CCC Long-Term Plan 2024 to 2034, goals to reduce emissions, build climate resilience and protect and regenerate the environment, especially our biodiversity, water bodies and tree canopy. The irrigation of treated wastewater to land meets many of these goals, as this will result in the regeneration of forest in the irrigated areas. Hence, maximising irrigated area is a key enabler for maximising carbon sequestration, for building climate resilience, for increasing our biodiversity and for protecting the mauri of our harbour by providing additional filtering of the treated wastewater before it follows a natural path to the harbour. Personally, I'd like to note that irrigation of wastewater to land is nothing new in various parts of the peninsula. In fact, it is a requirement in some new subdivisions with the installation of microprocessing systems with irrigation via purple pipes, just on a smaller scale. I fully support the irrigation to land of treated wastewater because, finally, it moves away from the historical and cultural injustice of using a wahi tapu site in the harbour to treat human wastes. Removal of this will assist in restoring the mauri of the harbour. It supports many of the stated CCC long-term plan goals as already outlined. It benefits recreational users, commercial operators using the harbour, allowing commercial operators, CCC and Banks Peninsula Inc. to market their product without the shadow of a harbour outfall. It increases the environmental value of the irrigated land as it supports the establishment of native forest and community access. The development of native forest canopy will capture rain and decrease flow of water in times of extreme wet weather events, compared to the current exotic grasses where runoff is high, and you've seen an image of that today. Having been involved with the option of irrigation to land of treated wastewater since 2020, I can personally attest to it having been a long and a stressful process.
Now we've just got one minute to go.
Okay,
Yep.
It's well past time to get on and do. My observation throughout this period has been that many in the community support irrigation to land, but in a silent way, and just want it to be done. Thank you very much for allowing me time to speak today.
Thank you both very much for that joint presentation. We've got 30 seconds, but but I think you've probably covered it all off, so we're good to go. Thank you very much. Now, can I invite? Did you have a question, Mel? Oh, yeah, you would have taken it a minute to ask it. Yeah. Can I invite Rick Tainui up, please, to the table? Welcome, Rick. Same rules. 10 minutes.
Yep. Morena councillors.
They seem to have missed me.
Oh,
I was going to do you last.
Okay.
Yep.
okay. Sorry. Look, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the mahi of council staff in bringing this work to this point. We recognise the effort and complexity involved. I also acknowledge the councillors who took the time to visit both the irrigation to land site at Robinson's Bay and the treatment site at Old Coach Road, and for joining us at Onuku Marae. This opportunity to share kōrero, kanohi to kanohi, was important for both parties. Onuku Runanga supports option 1 of the council's recommendations. Look, for over 800 years we've maintained a deep and enduring connection to our harbour. It has sustained our tipuna and continues to sustain our whānau today. As kaitiaki, we carry a responsibility to protect and restore this tonga for future generations. But today, that responsibility also sits with you as decision makers. Our long-term vision, Te Kōriata Core, sets out a 200-year pathway for protection and restoration of the harbour. This is not just about today. It is about ensuring a thriving harbour for those who come after us. A healthy harbour must be sustained environmentally, economically and culturally for everyone. From an environmental perspective, subsurface wetlands play a critical role in maintaining biodiversity and water quality by removing emerging contaminants, nutrients and pathogens before the treated wastewater re-enters the environment. Irrigation to land enables the earth and the native trees to absorb and cleanse treated wastewater, contributing to a healthier, more resilient ecosystems, ki uta ki tai. There are currently 133 irrigation to land systems in New Zealand, so this system is not new, and that was brought up, I think, by Chris and possibly Bronwyn. Option 1 works with the environment to treat and protect the harbour. Other options rely on discharge approaches that carry ongoing risk, particularly in the event of failure. From an economic perspective, a healthy harbour underpins local livelihoods, supporting salmon farming, tourism, seaweed farming, recreational fishing, commercial fishing. The well-being of a harbour directly impacts the well-being of our community. A couple of months ago, look, my 11-year-old grandson, who loves fishing, spent 2.5 hours on our harbour with his mates fishing. They caught 2 fish. When I was his age, I could stand on the wharf and catch 2 red cod in half an hour. This contrast reflects a harbour that is no longer as abundant as it once was, and further contamination will only continue that decline for future generations. Culturally, the harbour has safely sustained our people. Any risk associated with a mid-harbour outfall, particularly the risk of malfunction, would have significant consequences. It would directly impact our ability to safely consume kaimawana, which is central to who we are. Finally, we cannot afford further delays. A decision was made in 2020 to irrigate to land. 6 years later, we are still waiting for this work to begin. Our understanding is that further delays have already significantly increased costs. Continued delays will only place further burden on our community. For these reasons, Onuku Runanga strongly supports option 1 as the best outcome for our harbour and our community. Look, thank you again for the opportunity to speak today. I'm happy to take any part-time.
Cool. Hey, thank you, Rick, very much for that. And it's very, very clear. I just had one, or two actually, and I've asked a couple of the others. Is what the Friends of Banks Peninsula have raised is around the 300 metre pipe versus the other. Do you have a view on that?
I support what Suki was saying in relation to that.
The more
extension to the
resilience.
pipe. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really useful. And the other one was just because I know we've talked about my horror at that $20 million retaining wall at that site. Are you, as we work through this? I mean, another good example that Phil had was around the roading and not disrupting it for 2 years by looking at other options. Again, are you? What's your sort of view?
Well, look, we're pragmatic, Sam. We know, and we've been compromising, and councils, we've tried to work really hard with the council to get the costs down. So, putting the treatment plant in the hay paddock isn't the optimal solution for us, but it's practical.
Yep.
Because it will save Pūtea.
No, really good. And the other one, because it's my sort of frustration, was this conflation of the two treatment issues. You know, the Akaroa. Can you just talk to me a bit about that? Because we seem to be getting lumped with, you know, the significant cost increase, but we've actually changed the scope of the project.
Can you
Oh, sorry, just around devotionals and, you know,
Okay.
the two systems. Yeah.
Look, our thoughts were that if you separated Akaroa and devotional, that you would save money, but you know, it's possibly more practical to do it together. To be honest, look, one other thing I would like to say in relation to Lee and Bruce's suggestion around ocean outfall is, look, we've had our experts do the costing. We didn't agree with the council's numbers. We thought they should have been much higher, not lower.
Okay. No, really, really useful. Do you? Sorry, and then I'll pass it over. It's just good while you're here. In terms of the conflation of the two budgets between the two systems, is that being raised with you? You know, the cost is increased on the Akaroa treatment plant, but we've actually changed the scope and added more work in from a different budget. Do you think people understand that?
Possibly not.
Right.
Because obviously you need more storage if you're at Robinson's Bay. If you're going to, you know, add in devotional. I'm not sure if people realise that, you know, when you see the cost, say it's printed in Akaroa Mail at 160 million, and it's, you know, it also includes devotional. So I'm not sure the community actually understands that.
Might be an action. I see Joss is taking notes around how we communicate that stuff. So, okay, thank you. Mark.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick question around the devotional transporting of the waste via a marine pipeline to the new wastewater treatment. Is that got any thoughts in your heads?
Look, Mark, it's just being pragmatic again. Look, we will probably save a lot of money if it can come around the foreshore. And probably a good example so at home we are not connected to Akaroa's town supply for drinking water and wastewater. And when going back sort of 5 or 6 years, I approached the council about connecting our marae and those that live to the system. It was going to cost $10 million to come around the foreshore. We didn't, you know, we ended up having a discussion, how could the council help us with our waste and drinking water, because we spend a fortune on it. And we're ratepayers and we deserve, you know, a better system. But we're also pragmatic, and the council have come in and done some things to help, and we've just pulled back on pushing for that to come around the foreshore. I don't know if that answers it, Mark.
Great. I've got Aaron, and then we've still got a minute left.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. So the concerns that have been raised over the ground saturation, and if you get a wet winter or you get a wet summer, you're even worse off because you haven't used it up. How do you feel about that? And you'd know how the loose soils work. Water gets in behind, sits on the rock, pushes it out. What are your concerns over landslide through excessiveness?
Well, look, you'll know that we've had, over the last couple of years, a heck of a lot of rain. I mean, our marai's been flooded twice. What's been interesting is it's on the other side of the hill where the landslips have occurred. Robinson's Bay has been inundated, but the land hasn't moved.
But when you add all the extra water, you'd still be happy?
Well, I think, I would trust that Kylie and his team will do a good job, and, if it's too saturated, they're going to have to do something else. I'm not a water engineer, but I'm figuring they'll have an answer for that.
Yeah, we can cover that with them when they come through. So excellent. Hey, thank you, Rick. Much appreciated. Great. And now I've got Stuart Hawthorne from Akaroa Salmon, please. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. Yes, thanks for inviting me here today. I'm here today as the chair of Aquaculture New Zealand, the sector body that represents all of New Zealand's salmon, mussel and oyster farmers. I'm also, as you said, the CEO of Ahi Mokapuna Limited Partnership, better known as Akaroa King Salmon, and I'll be representing our position on this issue as well. Ahi means fire and Mokapuna means grandchildren. And our name represents the concept of fighting for the future, a fire in the belly for future generations. We're really proud of this name that was given to us by Onuku when they invested in the business. But we've got 40 years of history here in Akaroa Harbour, Christchurch and indeed North Canterbury. Our business starts in North Canterbury in a freshwater hatchery where we breed our juvenile salmon. These are then brought to Wainui and to our farms in Lucas Bay and Tatoki Bay on the east side of Akaroa Harbour. We rear the salmon there for 14 to 18 months and then they're harvested and taken to our processing plant in Wigram. We then process our fish into whole salmon, salmon fillets, salmon portions, hot smoked salmon and cold smoked salmon. I hope that many of the people here have enjoyed our product. It's a fantastic fish. And then it's sent to customers all throughout Aotearoa and indeed all over the world, from New York to Singapore, Melbourne, Sydney, Hong Kong, the Middle East, China and indeed Pacific States. Our salmon is celebrated by New Zealand's best chef, Simon Galt, Ben Bailey, and it's recommended by the New Zealand Chefs Association. They love our fish for its special taste and texture. And we believe that this is a product that the community in Akaroa, Christchurch and Canterbury can be rightly proud of. So to the issue for today, aquaculture requires clean and safe water. And in recent times, the aquaculture sector has seen the effects of sewage discharges into Maharangi Harbour, which is north of Auckland. Oyster farmers in that region have not been able to harvest their shellfish due to repeated spills of untreated sewage into what was once a pristine waterway. It's been happening for years, and this has damaged their reputation locally and internationally, and it's effectively destroyed the businesses of the 10 companies that operate in that waterway. And I just, this can't be right. Every New Zealander has the right to clean and safe coastal water, and I'm sure that everybody here feels that, whatever solution they're advocating for. Ahi Mokapuna, we directly support 75 jobs in this region, and we rely on that clean and safe water to rear our salmon, and the whole region can benefit from that positive reputation that comes with this. So our submission is that treated wastewater should not be discharged into Akaroa Harbour or further offshore. We support the concept of treating and managing our human waste on land, including the final disposal of the treated effluent. While we, and I am certainly not an expert on the proposed solution for on-land disposal, we do believe that the concept and the strategy of moving away from discharge to sea is the correct way forward for the longer health and reputation of the harbour and the region. If today you support this approach, this will pave the way for further improvements in the reputation of the region and the water quality in the harbour that will benefit residents and visitors to the area. It will also provide a stable environment for continued aquaculture operations and the safe gathering of kaimoana from this area. Developing bold solutions, as you guys are all aware, I'm sure, can be controversial. but continuing old practices has certainly not worked in Maharangi, or indeed more locally in parts of Canterbury. So I encourage you to have fire in your belly for the future of Akaroa Harbour. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much for that, Stuart. Thank you very much for that. That's really, really useful and good to get that commercial perspective on the economic value that sits within the harbour as well. Does anyone have any questions? No, you've done a great job. Thank you very much. Excellent. Okay, so that concludes our deputations, and we don't have any petitions, David. Excellent. So, Peter, Ryan, do you want to come up? I'm sure everyone's can't wait to hear your key organisational performance report. So, you jump right into it. So that's item 7.
Okay, good morning, everyone. This is the performance report up to the end of March 26, so there's only a quarter to go. It's very consistent with last month's really positive report, so I'm not going to duplicate everything that was said then. But I will go through the table on the second page of the report, which is a summary, and that's probably the neatest way to approach it. So in terms of levels of service, we remain at the end of Q3 at a record level of achievement. That's partly due to the lack of any natural disaster or unforeseen event through the year, but it's also due to the services really firing and positive feedback from residents. So they're both sitting at near or over record levels. We also achieved the resident survey result that we were looking for from the community in terms of its satisfaction with council overall and services. So in that sense, all the key customer measures are bang on or better. Capital projects also extremely good. I'm talking here about delivery, not spend. So delivery complete milestones for watch list and non-watch list, both firing very, very well. I should note that this is before any supply chain issues might be revealed, but we don't know for a fact that they will or when they will be revealed. But at this point, we're firing really well. Planning for future capital program delivery, so the other end of the pipe, looks extremely good for 27. 28, 29 is quite far out, but we're still quite close there, and we may scratch that through for year end. Lastly, value for money, being on budget. Council overall is absolutely on budget. This is about the components within that, and we've got a very small number of activities, 1 or 2, that are, have overspent for the year, and we're managing what we can around that. Capital program, as you can see, is about 11% under, which is consistent with the milestones being about 90%. So there's more detail coming from that from Paul in the PMO report. But overall, an extremely high and well-balanced year, looking very good. At this point, with 1 quarter to go, I think that these will be very close to the results for year end. I'm happy to field any questions, and if I can't answer them, I'll refer them to our head of service.
Yeah, great. Hey, thank you, Peter. That's really good. I've got one, but it's probably sort of not directly relevant, so I'll get, if anyone else got questions first. No, we're all good. May not be the best person to ask this, but it might be a Joss question around communications. I was quite disappointed publicly, not with the council, but we had such good results that essentially weren't covered publicly anywhere except for our newsline. Yet when we constantly get pillared for doing bad things, it's on the front page of the paper. Yet we had the best results in 20 years and no one covered it. Do you think, is there a different way we need to look at how we communicate, given that good news doesn't seem to get picked up when we do a good job?
It is partly a Joss response, and I'll flag her in a moment. But I do want to emphasise that you're right in the sense that these are the really big numbers. Like, it's easy to say 91% for levels of service. I think I mentioned in the last meeting, if you go back, we started at 45. And that's the work of literally thousands of staff and contractors rolled into a single number.
Yeah.
So it is hard to understand why it doesn't get some currency.
Yeah. Well, it's just it is disappointing because we get we've had the resident survey obviously uplift, staff surveys uplift, our results are being delivered, but when they dip slightly, it gets covered enormously, yet this didn't seem to get picked up. So, Joss, I don't know if you've got a view.
Sorry, Josh. Sorry, Josh.
Well, it's really put. And I'm not getting on my hobby horse, but we spend over $1 billion a year delivering to the city.
We use all our channels in order to get the good news out, because that's why we have Newsline. It's our one source of truth. It's where we can tell our story. We support that with all our social media channels. We used the Chief Executive's update to make sure it got out to staff. Yep. I can only hope that maybe I'll just have a chat with my friend Tina and suggest that she might like to cover some more positive stories in the future, and we could perhaps arrange that, or she could come in for a little briefing about that.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, so Aaron's got a question.
Just quickly, Joss, there's an old saying that no news is good news, and that goes in the reverse. Good news is no news.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm happy to move this. Jake's happy to second it. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thanks, everyone.
Can we move now to the financial report? So Bruce is coming up with, again, some good news.
Good morning, councillors. Yes, good news. No news is good news.
No, it's not. No.
It's not?
Good news is news. Yeah.
Oh, okay. 9 months report, so a wee bit larger than normal for the end of quarter. It's got the treasury compliance and the debt management both well in hand. Operating surplus at the moment, 52.9 million, better than budget. Expecting that to be still in the order of 44 million at the end of the financial year. So that was the same as last month. That forecast hasn't changed. 44.4 million's the number we've got there. A couple of comments, 3.4 and 3.5 around the weather event and the fuel increases, although probably reading the paper this morning would give you more of an update on the fuel increases. And at a high level, and capital program currently 51 million below budget and expected to be 74 by year end. 40 million of that has been accounted for in the draft annual plan, so we'll be looking at that for the final annual plan. Not really any other comments of any significance, so happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Bruce. That's really useful, and it's good to get that sort of comfort as we approach year end around that surplus. I know what you say. There's a few other things which we'll just have to manage, but it helps us as we work through our annual plan deliberations as well. So, does anyone have any questions for Bruce? No, all good. You happy? Nathaniel looks like he's happy to move it. Yep. And Jake looks like he's happy to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great. Thanks very much, Bruce. Much appreciated. Paul, do you want to come on up and talk about the capital program, please? So this is item number 9.
Yes, good morning. So the forecast for the core capital program remains stable at the 500 million, which is 89% of budget. So that's been really consistent throughout the year. One thing I'd just like to raise, one other point, is around the rising risk of the Middle East conflict. We are going to experience a number of difficulties going forward, particularly in the capital program, around the supply chain particularly. At the moment, obviously, there's the fuel issues and the cost of fuel, but it's the supply chain issues that will probably have a bigger impact on us longer term. And those are the only real comments I wanted to make.
No, that's really useful. And we'll just, I mean, we've obviously got the business continuity planning that happens on a couple of times a week, and you'll factor it in.
Yeah, and we'll continue to monitor the impacts as they become apparent. At the moment, they've not really materialised, but they will over time.
I see this morning there's been a delay in the ceasefire, or an extension of the ceasefire as well, so who knows where it will go. Does anyone have any questions? Phil?
Thanks, mate, and I'm just going down some of these things. When is, and it might already have happened, you might not be the right person to ask, but when will the Estuary Edge tender be going out?
I don't know the answer to Gavin. Do you know? No.
Maybe we'll get that through to your office.
Can find it out.
Yeah, great.
And I see, and it's probably more Brent, I see we're still working at Waka Terrace. Is that, it looks like it's just about finished. Is that
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
So we'll capture both of those and come back. We'll come back to your office.
Excellent, thank you.
Great, Victoria.
Thank you. I've just got a query around the 23101 Major Cycleway Norwest Arc route, University to Harewood. I see that it's sitting at risk, but when I look at the substantive material there, I can't see where the risk is coming from. I thought it was on track, and I'm just unsure to understand why it's been classified as at risk.
It is generally on track. I mean, one of the things is still there's some ground conditions that we're still uncertain about, and so that's really just, it would remain a risk till we're further through the project.
Okay, and so the ground conditions and whereabouts, please? Because you don't know. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we could come. Is that something we can come back to Victoria on? Yep, Brent's got that. Excellent. Anyone else got anything? No. Well, obviously it's really useful to get this as we get to year end, and we'll just obviously consider the capital performance as we work through the annual plan as well. So that's really useful. Phil's got one more question.
And can you please come back to me with the ground conditions in that area, because I've done a lot of work in that area, and it was always a good place to do work because it didn't seem to be that bad. So I'd be interested to know what the ground condition number is.
Great, so we've captured them. Excellent. Aaron looks like he's happy to move this. Andre looks like he's going to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great, thank you very much. Now, do we have Brian? Okay. Why don't we stop for... Oh yeah, Tim, do you want to jump in? Why don't we do... Let's do your one now, item 13, then we'll break for morning tea. Yeah, is that all right? I'm sure it'll be quick, but...
I don't have a choice.
No, yeah. I'll come and jump back for a second.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. Right, okay. So item 13, Linda, do we have? Is it going to be Linda, or is it you? Or?
It is Linda, but she may, Mr. Chair, she may have gone to CCHL, so I can speak to these if you like.
Okay, great, thank you, Bea.
So these are there are a number of CCOs here that council has an interest in. The Local Government Funding Agency, which is where we get our funding from, the Riccarton Bush Trust, Rod Donald, and Civic Building. Here's an opportunity to comment on the draft SOIs if you wish, and to also note that Civic Building's half-year report and full-year report are here as well. So
thank you.
They're here and normally presented as a package. I don't know if Linda wants to add any comment to that.
And welcome, Linda, and thank you for hunting down CCHL. Well, we thought we'd start without you, sorry. So do you have comments to follow Beads?
Not really. They're very straightforward, small CCOs. A few comments we've suggested on carbon emission reductions, and just essentially just for them to continue to be vigilant and do what they can.
Thank you. And I hadn't seen any questions put forward with regards to these from my colleagues, but are there any questions on these? Okay, Phil's happy to move it. Kelly, thank you for seconding it. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? It's carried. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
No? Oh yeah, okay. We will break for morning tea now for what, 10 minutes?
Okay. I don't know where everyone. We're missing a couple of people, but they shouldn't be too far away. Let's go. We'll go to the item 16, Linda. Does that suit you? So we'll do the draft statement of intent, which I'm happy to move, and Tim's happy to second. But if you want to introduce it, I'll just note we've got Brian and the team here from CCHL as well. So Tim seconded it. Yep. Great. Do you want to introduce it and then we'll go to questions?
Sure.
Please?
So the SOI sets out CCHL's intent, strategic intent and performance targets for the next 3 years. Their forecasts are draft forecasts to be updated for the final SOI, including giving some thought to the current conditions in the Middle East and what that might mean for the companies. The draft SOIs comply with the legal requirements of the LGA, and they reflect the Council's letter of expectation from January this year. The next stage is that any comments that the Council provides will be considered by the boards, and they will make any changes to their SOI that they consider appropriate and lawful, and final SOIs will come back due in by 30th of June, and I'll report them in July.
Yeah. So I think that's a really important point, is we can provide feedback, they'll then consider it and determine whether they include it. So, okay. Anything else, or you're all good? Great. Does anyone have any questions on this? No? Okay. It's already moved and seconded. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Now let's go to Linda again and Brian and the team. Item 17, the review of the directors' fees for Christchurch City Holdings. Noting Mel will sit back, although I know she would have voted for it. And there's obviously the PX paper on the strategic pay stuff, but we'll just, if we get too detailed in those questions, we'll need to clear the room and go into PX. But I think we can be more broad on that. So great, I'll hand over to you and talk us through what you need to.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I will take the paper as read. I'd just like to acknowledge my conflict of interest as Chair of Christchurch City Holdings Limited in this particular topic, given it's about the fees that are paid to the Christchurch City Holdings Limited Board. And in that context, I'd just like to draw your attention to the independent expert advice that's been received to support the consideration and recommendation of council officers. I would make a couple of comments. The review is a requirement under council policy following each local government election. So this is something that CCHL is required to do under your own policy after each local government election. There's no increase proposed in the base fees for CCHL directors, but based on the independent advice, there is a recommendation to add committee fees for the Governance and Appointments Committee, given the substantial workload involved in that work. The current fees sit within the independent expert advised range, and the fees are fixed for 3 years. So there is the potential for the fees as proposed to fall below the lower end of the recommended range during that 3-year period. I'd just also like to draw your attention to 6.2 of CCHL's own memorandum to the Council Chief Executive, whereby it advises that the current members of the Governance and Appointments Committee of CCHL have agreed to decline the additional fee recommended by the independent expert. However, the increase in the fees pool as recommended is sought so as not to disadvantage future members of the Governance and Appointments Committee. So those are current members of the Governance and Appointments Committee are myself as Chair, Gil Cox as the CCHL Deputy Chair, and Councillor Coker.
Excellent. So
Thank you.
this has been moved by the Mayor and seconded by me. Question. I mean, it makes sense. And having sat on that committee, I'm pleased I'm not on it now. So, Nathaniel, you had a question? Okay. Yep. Anyone got any questions? Excellent. Okay, you can jump back from the table now. And what we'll do is we'll do debate, but we've got voting to. We'll get that lined up for people as well. So just get ready. So Nathaniel, we'll hand over to you.
So first of all, just like to thank CCHL. The report that we received is really detailed, really clear, and the issue around the committee fees is a reasonable one to identify. I think it can be addressed without the need for us to vote for this pay rise. I don't think we need to vote for the increase to the fees pool. So we have a really good policy as a council on how we set directors' fees for our organisation. So we look at the industry median for similar roles, and we have a modest public service discount to recognise the public service element to that work. I think it's a good policy. I don't think we need to change it at the moment. And we can remain within that range we've created for ourselves and provide the fees for this committee out of that existing pool. We don't actually need to vote to increase the size of that pool to address the issue. We can redistribute what's in the existing pool to incentivise, as the issue was raised, to incentivise having people on that committee. It's quite clear in that paper that we're able to do that. And I also want to note it was only 3 months ago that we, as a council, we called on CCHL to exercise restraint and to help us exhibit financial restraint to the government and to ratepayers in what's become, even since then, a much more financially difficult year. And so it's important that we actually do that as well. So what we were asking CCHL to do when we passed that letter of resignation, letter of expectation, was that they would have to make uncomfortable decisions with their subsidiaries. So when the CCHL subsidiaries came to them with papers like this, they would have to consider and ask themselves, is this increase really necessary? And so that's the question that we have for ourselves now. And I believe because we can stay within our target band and provide compensation for the board roles without voting to increase the overall directors pool, it makes a lot of sense that we just leave it as the status quo and allow CCHL to make adjustments within the existing pool. They're able to do this. We really don't need to vote to increase the size of the pool. And I'd really ask my fellow councillors to just think about the residents we represent, the conversations we had with them last year about rates, and that they really elected us to make what is in some ways quite an uncomfortable, quite an awkward decision. But I think it is the responsible decision to recognise that we can solve this issue without increasing the size of the pool. So I'll be voting against this motion. Thank you.
Anyone? Oh, Jake? Yep.
I'll also be voting against this. I think that actually the proof is in the fact that we've got an unpaid councillor director who is on the governance and appointment committee, and I know we've been on boards where we've had to take on extra workload, and that's really about expectation management. When you come onto a board, you've got to do your fair share and take on some extra workload, and that's how that problem is solved, not just by putting in more money.
Mine's a suggestion with the recommendation here with the will of the mover and the seconder, that would it be helpful?
Can we just finish debate?
Oh, sure.
Or no,
I thought you had.
Sorry, actually, you suggest it now and then.
Okay, if we just change it to up to, increase it up to, in the light of the fact that there's already 3 who won't be picking it up anyway, they won't need the pool to be so big if they're not picking it up. So if we just said up to.
So let's just finish the debate, and what we do is we'll just stop and get some advice, because I'm not sure if we can. Tim.
Well, thank you. I believe that all the directors involved with CCHL, but also our subsidiaries, are there for more than just money. They are there for the good of the community and the city, and they've got that vision part of that. Having been the chairman of VBase, which was then turned into VO, being around that board table and seeing the work that went in after the earthquake from those people was outstanding. And it included Brian when I sat back and resigned as chair, and he stepped in to take it on its next part of its journey. I'm more than happy with this. I think it's reasonable, and we do need to attract the best people. They do take a cut because it is a service to the community, so it's not like private companies. They are aware of that, and we need to attract the best people. So I will be supporting this. I think it's a pragmatic way forward, and yeah, thank you.
Kelly?
Yeah, I'll be supporting it too. You know, having served on a board and seeing the work that's put in. Unlike us, these people work and live in the real world, and I think they'll be properly rewarded for it. So yeah, I'll support it.
Okay, so anyone else want to debate it? No? Okay, I will just wrap it up and then we'll just stop for a minute so I'm not a good multitasker. Look, I'm more than happy to support this. I think that, you know, probably on the logic of we already have unpaid people doing it, on that basis, no one would get paid around the CCHL board for the risk and liability that sits there. You know, I've sat there and worked through this, and it takes days and days and days. The reality is that, you know, the directors there now don't want this. I acknowledge how awkward it is for them to do this. We've asked for them to review it as per our policy. We would change our policy if we wanted to do something different, but we haven't as a council, and we're at this point where they've had to come after getting independent advice and offering it, where they've offered their view as opposed to the independent advice, is in that they won't accept the fee. So that is the point of this. We'll just get some advice on the other stuff, you know, which I think is fine. And just to note, obviously, we've also got training scheduled next week for council on directors' liability and obligations as well, which I think might be helpful in this case. So what we'll do is we'll just stop for 2 minutes. I just want to understand whether we can change it to up to technically or not, and then we'll go from there. So just pause for 2 minutes. I thank everyone, and I've got the first important announcement. Someone's left their glasses at the table when they came up before. So I'm sure it's not Bailey Nielsen, but the name is Bailey Nielsen. Oh, is it Linda? Oh. Okay, I won't judge. You can just someone. Maybe we won't get them back till after Akaroa, then perhaps we'll just. Are they yours? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we've just got. So just so everyone's in the loop on this, Pauline's put up an amendment which the Mayor and I are happy to incorporate, which is just noting that the current directors have opted to not receive it, and that that goes back into operating surplus every year of CCHL. So anything unspent is not accrued. So the team are just pulling that up now. Not yours? Oh, okay. They must be Brent's. Yeah. So we'll get that on the screen in a second. The team are just. Yep. Okay, so can everyone see that? Just noting that the current directors have declined to receive the payment for sitting on GAC, and that any unused amount in any year is part of CCHL's annual operating surplus. Pauline, you comfortable with that? Yep, great. Hey, thanks very much. So let's go to votendo, and can we just vote and then we'll move on. Yeah, can we put? So let's vote on. So let's put one. Can we put one? No. Can we just put the lot, and then if you vote against 3, is that all right? Yeah. Yeah. Voting's closed. That's carried. Great. Thank you, CCHL, for coming in. Yeah, it should come up on the screen somewhere. Oh, I see what you want to do. Did you want to vote for number 3? Okay, cool. Okay. Never seen that. Okay. You sure you don't want to vote for 3, Pauline? The way your amendment that you put up? But okay. No. All right. Okay, that's carried. Thank you, CCHL. Yep, much appreciated. Okay. Right, so now let's go to the item number 18. No, sorry. I'm going to go back to item number 10, the Akaroa Wastewater paper. So can we get the relevant staff up to the table, please? So you'll obviously talk through this, and I'd quite like you to preempt our questions, if it's possible, on the deputations as well. So I've got a few here, but I'd just like you to talk. So start us at the beginning, and then can you talk through any of the points raised in the deputations as well, if they're not already covered in your slides? So.
Yeah. So shall we go straight into our presentation?
Yep.
I think that might be helpful.
Yep.
So here today with Brent Pizzey, Senior Legal Counsel, and Kylie Hills, Senior Engineer. Kylie will take us through this presentation, which hopefully addresses a lot of those questions.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so what the report describes and discusses, it starts with the 2020 decision following consultation around irrigation to land at Robinson's Bay, Hammond Point and Takamatua, in that decision to irrigate to those sites. Since then, there's been a cost increase from the consultation estimate of $45 to $52 million, now at $175 million. If council wants to save costs, and if council wants to save costs, these are the reasonably practical options. Council must choose the most cost-effective option. That doesn't mean the cheapest. It can include social, environmental and cultural outcomes. And the LGA also requires decisions on options to consider mana whenua values, and it says a significant decision in relation to land or a body of water take into account the relationship of Maori and their culture and traditions with their ancestral land, water, sites, waihe tapu, valued flora and fauna, and other taonga. The report considers 13 long list options. Most are not reasonably practicable or cost effective. 4 reasonably practical options were shortlisted, and these seek cost savings. There are 3 variations on the current irrigation to land proposal, or the discharge to harbour option. Community views and preferences were expressed in the 2020 consultation, in submissions to the 2023 resource consent application, in deputations, including those you've heard this morning, and will receive further input from the community in future notified resource consents. The recommendation is to reduce costs by seeking option 1, the irrigation to land with the changes described in Resolution 4, and to look for other cost savings provided these do not increase the frequency of discharge to harbour. The next step is to, whatever the decision, seek a change to the resource consent applications that are with the commissioners at the moment, and later to report back to council on other cost savings against that recommended option. And we'll also include advice on that 300 metre outfall. What is the cost to extend further? So the current application, just recapping what that covers. First and foremost is the new wastewater treatment plant at Old Coach Road, and the irrigation to Robinson's Bay, Hammond Point and soon Devotial. It includes 84 hectares of native plantings and 24,000 cube of constructed storage at Robinson's Bay. It also includes the Old Coach Road wetland, where occasional discharges to harbour will pass through that wetland before going out to Children's Bay. And all those discharges are through the 300 metre outfall. Just a wee reminder, these are the sites that we're looking at, the 2 areas in red. To the left is the Robinson's Bay site, to the right the Hammond Point site. The green area is the planting areas. The proposed scheme is to irrigate land by drip irrigation laid below the trees using dripper lines. In these schemes, leaf litter and undergrowth are allowed to grow over the pipes. There are approximately 130 irrigation to land schemes in New Zealand, and many of them are to natives and on sloping ground. The photos here are of our Tikau Bay scheme, which has been operating for about 20 years. That started out as irrigation to pine trees, which you can see in the top left, and over time the undergrowth has started to come in and take over. We've also done a irrigation to trees study in Devotial to trial different natives, different plants, and see what grows best. little bit on site performance and rainfall events. Some submitters were concerned about the risk of landslides from saturated soils and that getting worse with climate change. However, we've engaged experts who've modelled appropriate irrigation rates and accounted for climate change. The slope, the soil, the drainage characteristics are what makes Robinsons Bay and Hammond Point suitable for this activity. And the site performance in recent storms, and there's a small list of them on the right, has seen over 200 mils of rainfall in a weekend, and the irrigation areas don't have landslides. The scheme at present also includes a 3,200 square metre wetland scheme. This is our concept design for the hay paddock site, with options to reduce the scheme extent, move the treatment plant across the road to that paddock. This will get reduced, but it gives you a feel of the scale of the site. The scheme at present includes a harbour outfall for storage exceedances. The 300 metre distance was set by a quantitative microbial risk assessment to ensure public health risks of the discharge are minimised. If council prefers a longer outfall pipe to address the community concerns, no further expert assessment is needed. It's technically feasible to extend that pipe further. It simply costs more money and has no gain to public health and ecological effects. Now I note in the last line there's an error there in that $16,000 figure. It should be about $5,300. So that's roughly the cost to extend further. Per metre. The scheme does have built-in contingencies. So for the risk of pumping and treatment breakdowns or storage tanks being unavailable, the scheme has the capacity to pump and treat. The scheme has capacity in pumping and treatment to have standby systems, to have backups. And that avoids these issues. The land discharge is supplemented with a harbour discharge. So that's always on the table, that if the ground is not irrigable because it's saturated and storage is full, it has to have a discharge path to somewhere, and that's the harbour. And that discharge, incidentally, is sized for the full capacity of what can get pumped to the treatment plant. The risk of localised slips in the irrigation area. The irrigation scheme, as designed, has flexibility to operate with a number of irrigation areas out of service at any one time. The scheme is intended to actively identify any areas that may present a risk and just not irrigate those areas until it is safe to do so. The risk was raised of a total failure of the irrigation scheme, and that's why we have a discharge path to harbour, and that can take the full flow from Akaroa and Devotional. And we'll just add that discharge pipe that goes 300 metres out, it can easily be extended. So it can go all the way to 2,700 metres or to the harbour heads. In developing the scheme, we've sought expert advice, and council follows expert advice on irrigation rates, native plant and slope stability, nutrient management, ecological effects, to ensure that risks are mitigated or eliminated. And this is just the short list of our experts who've been helping us on the irrigation scheme. So it's had a lot of scrutiny. Dr. Colin Merck did the terrestrial investigations for the site to assess those impacts, and his assessment to the commissioners read, or part of it, read infrastructure for the betterment of the overall environment and reasonable human amenity and comfort, sensitive to cultural needs and biodiversity values, must be invested in from the beginning. This scheme is designed to provide a net benefit across multiple values and be adaptable to future trends in climate, biodiversity, and social cultural conditions. It goes on to say that overall there will be substantial net gain of biodiversity values over the status quo and an overwhelming positive effect on the biodiversity and other ecosystem services of the Akaroa Basin. So just touching on some of the not reasonably practical options that were not shortlisted. The ocean outfall is considered less cost effective than the irrigation to land and mid-harbour outfall options. It has construction risks and significant risks of cost escalation. It also has critical consent and risks in construction, so sediment and plumes from that construction activity through the harbour, and it does not align with mana whenua values. I&I reduction was also considered. It does not change the need for the scheme or a discharge solution. The network performed to approximately 21% I&I in 2025, and options proposed do not rely on further I&I reduction. And the cost outweighs the benefit. As noted in one of the Friends of Banks Peninsula side, the council has spent many millions of dollars on I&I reduction in Akaroa, and there's no clear year-on-year drop. However, I&I reduction does align with mana whenua values, and the Rūnanga are always supportive of improving that infrastructure. So I'll skip past this slide, but it might be worth coming back to for questions. Okay. So a quick run through of the four core land-based options. We have irrigation at Robinson's Bay and Hammond Point, and devotional has been removed from the scheme. Then there are two combinations to choose from. The first relates to storage, which is the third line, of either 16,000 or 4,000 cube of constructed storage, and the choice of do you site the treatment plant at the hay paddock or the hillside. And there's four combinations therein. That results in a varying amount of discharges going to harbour and discharges to land, and that middle line of percent of days wastewater is discharged to land pretty much sums up the tension there. And below that, at the bottom, is the cost of the options. So obviously, the less storage and moving the plant to the hay paddock, the cheaper the scheme gets, but you have more discharge days to harbour, build more storage, less discharges to harbour. Option 5 on the end is to go direct to a permanent harbour outfall. 2,700 metres is what we applied for in 2015. So it's recycling that option once again. It is the cheapest at $127 million, but it's a continuous discharge to harbour. The last option, the status quo, which is to irrigate Hammond Point, Robinson's Bay, and the devotional, or land at the devotional recreation reserve. That's what we're seeking consents for at the moment. That's very much the most expensive option. And there isn't much difference between the discharge frequency to harbour for that option compared to options 1 and 3. So it somewhat makes it a non-starter. That's why it's not shortlisted. So why are we not recommending that last option for the 2,700 metre outfall? It does not achieve sustainable ecological benefits to the land. It does not provide for mana whenua values. And although the option is simpler to operate, it is more challenging to maintain and repair should something go wrong with that pipe. The pipes are on land, at least we can dig them up and fix them. So marine pipes are harder. Just talking briefly about the proposed change to the irrigation rates. Council's experts advise rates in the current application rate are very low and highly conservative due to community concerns, not necessarily expert advice. The independent experts support an increase to doubled rates, and the rates are consistent with the new regulations of the WEPs. The change also reduces the irrigation area to the less steep 17 degree slopes. Currently the scheme goes up to 19 degrees, and this is basically to keep it aligned with the WEPs. Otherwise we'd have a different consent path. Possible further cost savings by increasing the rates to some land and other changes to the scheme we'll report back to on in July. One of the submitters raised a comment on saturation. The intent is not to saturate the ground, but also it was raised by one of the submitters that the scheme relies on the plants to uptake the water. This is not the case. The scheme doesn't rely on the plants to uptake the water. A portion will get uptaken by the trees, but another portion will descend through the soil pack and travel below ground and come out at the streams or the harbour. Our ecologists support the nitrogen load of the current application, and we don't currently propose to change this. So the recommended option is to remove devotional irrigation, to reduce storage from 24,000 cube to 16,000 cube, and to move the wastewater treatment plant to the other side of Old Coach Road. The changes go hand in hand with removal of irrigation to slopes of more than 17 degrees. We touched on that earlier. The change in irrigation rates, which is supported by our experts and compliant with the regulations. It does require a reduced size of wetlands because of the moved treatment plant taking up some of that land, and it still achieves the 3 days in the wetland before discharge on all but 16 days in 10 years, and a discharge to harbour on fewer than 1% of days. There is no change at the moment to the outfall for storage exceedances. It's set as 300 metres into Children's Bay, and there is no change to the 84 hectares of plantains in Robinson's Bay and Hammond Point. Questions?
Excellent. Hey, thank you. Yeah, I've got a heap of questions from people. Thank you for that. Is there anything that wasn't in the slides that came up in the deputations you want to proactively address?
No.
Yeah, no, we think we've covered it.
Great.
We're happy to take questions.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you. So far I've got Pauline, Aaron, Melanie.
Thank you.
So, yep.
Yes, and you did answer a few of those. Thank you. So are you confident, because there was a reference from Lee Robinson that we could be taken to a court
Just
over...
talking to your mic, Pauline.
That we could face a court inquiry if we go for option A. Are you confident that this is going to stand up? That we have covered all the options required?
Yes, Mr Robinson's reference was to Section 17 of the Local Government Water Services Act, which sets out the objectives that all water services providers must seek to achieve. And the staff report says in several cases that the staff assessment is that each of the options in the report, each of the shortlisted options, would achieve those objectives.
Okay, so the answer is yes, you're confident. And another one is, so my second question is just, if option A was approved today, how many weeks, months or years will it be until the irrigation of the land and the trees commences? And where I'm going with this is how big will the plantings be by the time it begins, because we know the trees will absorb some of that Is it a bit of a guess, or you have a stab at it?
Obviously, the unknown there is the length of time for the consenting process.
Yes.
So when we come back in July, we will also present options for the consenting pathway.
So it'll be a new consent? You're fairly sure that will be determined, will it?
It's likely to be a new consent, yes.
Okay, so there will be considerable growth in the plantings that are already there now by the time this starts. Yep, that's me. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Pauline. Aaron, and then Melanie.
Yeah, I think I've got 4 here. So the first one is the jump in cost from the 45 to 52 million. So Infrastructure New Zealand costs have risen 8 to 12% per annum since 2020. So that should mean about a 60% increase. So adding $30 million to the project over that amount of time, not $130 million. So when we consulted, how honest were we with the public, or were we just going out quite blind when we went out with a number of 45 to 52 million? And that's not really a fair consultation.
Just let them answer it now. Yeah, that's cool. So maybe the best way to, and you know how to answer this, but the best way to do it would just be talk through the cost escalations again.
Yeah. So there's a section in the staff report on the cost escalations, but the highlights, the big ones, is the inflation, which you've discussed. Then there's the NZTA cost of having to do full reseals to that road for the whole distance of the pipework. That was never anticipated that we'd have to do that. The next big one is the treatment plant site itself and needing the deeper foundations, heavier foundations that weren't originally envisaged, and staff and our experts had expected the foundations to be similar in need to the reservoir that's already on that site. It's a pretty new structure, but our advice and design investigations was it needed deep piled foundations. So that pushed it up another 20 odd million. We have devotionals now in the mix of the price. So previously that was a separate project, about $20 million. That's come into the project cost from a separate budget. They've been amalgamated. And then there's a few other things such as moving to the covered storage tanks, which has been a cost increase from the pond option, dam option that was proposed at consultation, and that was in response to community concerns. So those are some of the big ones.
Yeah, so they all happened, but how did we not foresee a number of those prior to going out to the consultation? Because my question's around, we go out with a number, because it's the public's money we're spending, and this is probably more for you, Brent, that we go out with a number that changes by 400%. It just, the public cannot have confidence in the council if we do that on all our projects.
There's nothing in terms of legal input I can say to answer that question. It's a question about public confidence in the council. The legal element of the answer, councillor, would be that it's precisely because of that cost increase that staff are reporting to you now.
Right. Okay.
I wonder, can you just talk me through a wee bit around, because we've suggested putting one in there today around getting external advice, you know, depending on what the decision is today. We must have quantity surveys involved from the beginning of this. Can you just talk us through how that works?
Yeah, so as with any last project, we engage a quantity surveyor to advise us on what things might cost. The challenge in this case is the unknowns. So as I said, NZTA introduced a new expectation since consultation that we must reseal the whole road and give them a rebuild. That's unexpected, not foreseen. The deep foundations at the plant site, you know, the assumption going into it, which the QS, you know, didn't oppose, was the existing large concrete tank there's got this type of foundation. It should be appropriate. The geotech work we've done more recently says deeper piles are needed. So these are unforeseen events.
Yep. No, okay. Aaron, you got anything else?
Yeah, I do. Next one is insurance in case of failure, like the landslip risk. And now that we're looking at double the amount of irrigation per square metre, the potential landslip risk. So say the modelling doesn't match what the environment wants to do, and we get that, where does the liability lie with all the various professionals that have given us the advice and says, look, do this, this and this, but then that, as we've seen in other infrastructure across the country, doesn't always quite meet what the environment says. Who then puts their hand up and digs into their pocket?
So there's a few answers to this one. First up, all of our consultants have indemnity insurance for such things. So if they design a building and the building falls over and they were negligent in that design, we expect their insurance to pay out and fix the problem. Now, whether you can get the full value, that's a legal problem at the time. The other part is it's not $170 million if we get a localised slip in an area that perhaps shouldn't get as much water as it does, should that happen. It's not going to cost $170 million. It's that small area. And the solution may be, okay, we can irrigate more at other areas which are responsive in taking the water, or it might be we have to do a localised pipe repair, or a main gets damaged in that slip and needs repair. So it might cost a few tens of thousands of dollars to fix. But that slip isn't going to take out the treatment plant or the terminal pump station.
Cool. And then finally, just around confidence again on the I&I. So we've spent millions. So I&I is a big problem there, as we've been told all the way along. We've spent millions and got nowhere, was what I heard before.
It's really hard to pin the repair work we've done to reduce an I&I at a year-round level because it's quite variable. The repair work's targeted the pipes that needed replaced and the pipes that needed repair. So it's money well spent shoring up infrastructure that was not in a good state.
But so still hasn't helped the I&I.
It hasn't necessarily nailed all the I&I. And the big issue with I&I is there's 17 kilometres of wastewater mains in Akaroa. How do you find that one joint that is letting in the water? It's not easy to locate and find. So although we may do investigations and replace a piece of pipe that CCT camera inspections tell us is damaged and likely to be a cause of I&I, it doesn't get rid of it all. There's also the private side. We can do a heck of a lot of work bringing the city network up to the best possible standard in the country. We've still got the public side to deal with, and that's really hard to get people to fix stuff on their property. The bylaw potentially allows us to go and do that, but we really don't want to be forcibly going onto people's property to fix their gully trap.
Well, we used to.
All right, so
can I just cover that also? There's a return on investment, so you get to the point where we could throw a lot of money into I&I and get very little return. It's a similar discussion we had a number of weeks ago around leakage. We could put a lot of money into leakage, but the lower you go, the more money it is spent to get that little bit extra.
It's the sort of 80-20 rule, or probably 95-5, is it? Yeah. Okay, Aaron, you're good? Yep, thank you. Melanie.
Thank you. I had two questions from the presentation from Friends of Banks Peninsula. So one was, I'll just find it, they've talked about on slide 4 that the 6 hectares of land that we're planning to irrigate is considered high risk due to elevation, downslopes and winter saturation. Just wondered if you could talk to that.
We don't know which 6 hectares they're referring to.
Right, thank you. And the other question I had was, they've said that if we were to do irrigation, the contaminants will accumulate in the mud flats. Have we got any thing to back that up?
So we've been working on the consent application for that discharge, that 300 metre discharge to harbour, and have sought advice from the ecologists on what's the impact of that. That's part of the assessment for the resource consent application. They've looked at the quality coming out of our existing wastewater treatment plant, which would be lower, and considered the quality that will come out of the new plant, and they're supportive of the option.
So you're saying there's no evidence for the statement, is that right?
I
Well, you haven't
can't
seen
really
any.
comment on their evidence.
Yeah, but you haven't seen any. Okay, thanks.
Cool. You good, Mel? Tyrone?
Actually, just on the INI, just while I'm thinking about it. So, renewals over time may address some of, like, by some fluke. I mean, I know Kylie, you've noted the difficulty of locating some of those things, but I mean, renewals over time could actually resolve some of those problems.
It'll be a positive outcome.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, it's my main question, which is, so just so we're all clear, so just the proposal to reduce storage, to irrigate more, and so that water has to go somewhere, and that, you know, compared to the original proposal, and that water is going out into Children's Bay or into the harbour on some level, so on much greater quantities than was originally proposed, right? That's correct? Potentially.
Not necessarily much greater, but
in
more
greater.
Greater.
Yep. And people can apply the.
Okay, so your question?
Yep. So well, that's part of the questions, which he's answered.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make sure that we're all absolutely clear on this. And you've said $16,000 a metre on a. Oh, sorry.
So apologies there, that was the wrong number. So it's 59. 5,300 thereabouts.
Oh, per metre. Yeah, I missed that bit. Yeah, exactly. So 5.3 million to go a kilometre. No.
Hang on, guys.
Oh, okay,
Can we not?
right.
Can I just have the staff answer it? So Tyrone, ask your question, and then
Sorry,
we'll go to Engineer Kelly after that.
doing maths on the fly. Yeah. Sorry, I'm normally good at maths, but anyway. But please answer. Like an extra kilometre would cost what?
5.3 million.
Sorry for interrupting. Kylie, would you mind clarifying an answer that you gave a moment ago? The councillor asked you whether the frequency of the discharge to harbour under option 1 would be more or less than what the council is currently applying to do. My understanding of this chart here, please tell me if I'm wrong, is that it's showing that it's fewer days under option 1 than it is under the current application.
Brent, you interpreted my question correctly, so yeah. So let's have another go at that.
Yeah. So misheard the question. Yes. Status quo, we have, and I'll do the mental maths this time, approximately 51 days per year going to harbour. Option 1 takes that to approximately 26.
Oh, sorry, no, it was a comparison between the scheme as initially proposed, rather than the status quo, and then and then the option as proposed today.
So I'd have to come back with that number.
But it would be significantly more, or more. Yeah.
I couldn't say at this point. Sorry.
Okay, Tyrone, have you got what you need?
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Have you got another question? Okay, cool. All right, thank you. David, and then I'll go Victoria.
Brilliant, thank you. Just a couple of questions, if you can help me understand, around water discharge into the harbour. Obviously, it's been in the media quite a bit with Bromley and bits and pieces. The quality of the water that would be discharged, where does that sit in the scheme of things? More or less than Bromley? I mean, I think Aaron sort of touched on it earlier with the ECAN guy. Because in some reports, actually, the Avon River with our geese and bits and pieces is actually in a worse condition than the water that we would put out into the harbour. Is there any truth to that?
I can't comment on the Avon River, but the discharge to the harbour under the new regulations will be higher than the discharge to open ocean. So the regulation sets bands depending on the nature of the water, and an estuary or harbour requires a higher level of quality than the ocean discharge.
Okay, you're good, David? Yep, great, thank you. Victoria.
Thank you, gentlemen. One of my questions sort of follows up from Councillor, from David down there. Some concerns have been raised by DOC about threats to the water quality in the harbour. So I'm trying to understand about the quality of the water, of the treated wastewater entering the harbour compared to the quality of the water that's entering the harbour naturally via runoff from the land, or the quality of the harbour water as it currently stands. Can you comment on that, please?
Yeah, I'm not across the stormwater runoff from the various farms, so we'd have to talk to our colleagues in the marine monitoring world.
Okay, but how about insofar as the quality of the water in the harbour already? What I'm trying to establish is whether the outfall is going to improve the quality of the water at all.
Given the frequency, the outfall, the 300 metre outfall, is only discharging sort of 1% or less of the time. And the advice we've had from our ecologist around the consent application for that is to have a less than minor effect on the harbour. So it's not seeking to change what's there.
Okay, thank you. My other question then is, hearing from Friends of Banks Peninsula this morning, they made some comments about a lack of full disclosure, and I wondered what else is there that hasn't been disclosed to the public, and if you're not able to talk to that, maybe you could undertake to talk with them after today to see if there's anything else that they're missing that they haven't got, because I was concerned to hear that they haven't got full disclosure.
I'm unaware of anything they've requested not being given to them.
Perhaps can we then chat with them afterwards to see if there is anything in particular? Thank you. Thanks.
You're good?
Yep.
Great. I've just got a couple, please, and a lot of them have been covered, so thanks very much. They're just things that have cropped up this morning. So there's obviously the cost escalation because of the NZTA requirements on the road. Just so I'm clear, in the recommendations in option 1, we will investigate all options as to whether actually there are other ways to do that which will reduce the cost and or be more effective, because I think there's a cost component, but there's an actual practical disruption component that sits there for a couple of years as well.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Great. Okay, excellent. And it's good we've had the discussion on the 300 metre in Children's Bay. So I know it's what you've baked in is not extending it, but you're going to look at what we would do to extend it and come back to us in July. So that's good. And the only other one I had, or two other ones. One of the deputations made points around contingency on top of contingency. Can you just talk? That always. I'm just keen to understand that if you're aware of that or what that, just so I can get some more understanding, please.
This is a common one, so it's a great question. When our quantity surveyors and people build up these cost estimates, they'll put together an itemised list of everything they know about the project and what it might cost, the metres of pipe, the tonnes of material, whatever it may be, and the current rates. Then they'll apply some factors on that for engineering, design, legal fees, whatever it may be, normally as percentages. And those are quite well-established engineering norms. We often use the ASENS, the Association of Chartered Engineers New Zealand, or Construction Engineers New Zealand norms for that. Mm-hmm. And then once we have all of those figures, we apply an overall contingency. And that contingency is reflective of the maturity of the design. Is it concept and high level, or is it detailed design is done and you're out to tender?
Yep.
or perhaps
So
even got 10.
is it fair to say that that contingency component, we treat it like all our other infrastructure projects, and it gets refined the closer we get to more detailed design?
Absolutely.
Yep.
And
Cool.
in the case of the numbers you have here, we've tried to avoid doing blanket contingencies on the whole project to try and be a little bit more transparent and nuanced. So where elements such as terminal pump stations or pipelines have had very advanced design done to them and a lot of investigation, the risks are reduced, the contingency is reduced.
Yeah. Okay.
So
no, that clarifies it. That's useful. In terms of another point that was made was around public access to, I think it was the Robinsons Bay. Can you talk through what public access looks like to the area? Is there any? Are we doing anything that will restrict public access beyond reasonable health and safety grounds?
It is something to be explored. So under the new regulations, they require a very high level of disinfection for wastewater going into areas that have public access.
Yep.
And we're going to have to find out from the regulator what that means, how close is too close.
Yep.
Our previous advice was public walking access is pretty safe in these types of areas with drip irrigation, but the regulations may change that.
Okay, so we'll just work through that with the intent of being as publicly accessible as possible. Yeah, okay. Really useful. And then the last one, and I guess it comes back to my sort of overarching concern for the last 10 years, 15 years, is obviously around the delays of this. And we see it across everything as the longer it takes to get stuff done, the more it costs. And we just seem to relitigate issues. Is there anything we can do around the consenting side of this that actually just speeds it up? Like what can we do, Brent? Give me a magic solution.
I can't give you the magic solution today, but there are ways to speed up the process, and I think it's the last resolution says that in that report coming back in July, staff will be given some advice on what those routes are and the pros and cons of them.
Yep.
But there are legal routes available to speed up the process.
Yeah, because I guess every year we delay whatever the option is. We're just, the people predominantly from the middle of Christchurch are paying for this, so we just need to get on and do something. So, okay, I'll stop my rant. Tim, and then Pauline.
Yeah. Thank you. Just a couple of things. First, comment with regards to concern over the stabilisation or the stability of the land in Robinsons Bay. But my understanding is with the plantings, etc., and we would love to do it all around the bays and Littleton, etc., because it stabilises the land, but also cuts down or reduces sediment runoff. Any comments with that?
No, those are positives of the scheme.
Cool, thanks. The second one is Dr. Colin Merck mentioned about future trends in climate. It's not an exact science whilst it's a science, but this scheme can actually increase if required. Is that correct?
Yeah. So
the land. The land option.
So I may give you the wrong answer, and if I apologise. You'll have to tell me. So for trends in climate change and the rest, the scheme has looked at NIWA's predictions of what rainfall intensities are going to do for the next 35 years. And how much more rain can we expect? And we've used numbers from the 2050s predictions for between now and then. And likewise, it's scaled for growth in Akaroa through to the 2050s.
Great. Thank you. No, that's good. Final question is probably to you, Chair. Following on from what you said earlier, this is coming back to the 30th July meeting. When are we actually going to make a decision? Oh, excellent. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, then it's kind of like, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mine was just about that estimated population growth for Akaroa, because it is limited, isn't it, by the area that you can actually put more houses in. It can't grow too much, can it? Do you know?
100 kDCs.
Okay, we're nearly there. Come on.
Have you got an idea of what it could grow to, numbers-wise?
I can't remember, I apologise off the top of my head, what the predicted growth is.
Yeah, I thought for some reason it was constrained. Anyway, thank you.
It's very constrained, yeah. Okay, and just the other one I've got, and then I think we're good to go, is just around storage. So we've obviously looked at reducing it. What we're agreeing to today is, in principle, getting on with it, doing what, depending on what the council decide to do. But we're not ruling anything out in terms of the storage capacity. If there are ways to look at it where we go, actually, there's more value for money, there's more effective sort of delivery at that point. Is that correct? Just based on the resolutions, because I'm looking at number 5, and I just want to be clear on that. This option can include changes to storage volumes.
The resolution as drafted, Chair, I'm looking at resolution 4C, where it specifically says reducing the volume of storage of treated wastewater to 16,000 cubic metres.
Yep.
If that is the resolution, the storage can't be increased above that.
Yes, but can it be decreased if you said actually, it needed to come down 1,000, for example, 1,000 cubic meters or whatever, based on something else that was done? I'm just trying to understand if we're not limiting you as you work through this until July.
That's a good point, Chair. That was the intent of resolution 4F to leave that scope available. But
and 5,
and 5, but for completeness, it might be worthwhile to add in some words at least in 4C to at least.
No, I think it's okay. I just wanted to make sure we're not limiting any options as you work through this for the next 2 months. Okay, cool. Right, so we're there. Now there's a resolution on the table that Tyrone and I have worked on. It includes advice on extending the outfall. So this is option 1. It includes advice on extending the outfall, which has come from Tyrone, just based off the feedback from the local community, and you can speak to it in debate. And I've just added one in there, 6, because I just want an independent peer review of the costings of the land irrigation works outlined in resolution 4. So they basically, all it's saying is when it comes back in July, I want some independent view of it, which means that will incorporate 5 as well, won't it? In a sense of 4 will go into 5, and then that'll all be peer reviewed. That's how it works, eh? Fives bring, just so we're, 5's work would go into 4, and then that whole thing would be reviewed, wouldn't it? Yep, cool. I just want to make sure I was clear. Oh, no, sorry. I just want to make sure I'm not precluding anything. Okay, Mel? Yep.
Do you know what the cost of that would be?
Of the peer review? Probably
We'll have a QS involved in the project anyway, so independent QS.
And for that volume of money, it's just good practice,
Process-wise, does this decision today allow staff to commence the resource consent?
I think we'll get on with it, yeah.
Yes.
Because we're not waiting to come back to have the information in July approved or anything.
No, it's literally to go, hey, let's get on with it. This is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong. It's to get on with it, but come back with options that still consent compliant, but will help reduce that cost.
Correct.
Yep. Great. Right, we're all good? Does anyone want to debate it? Tyrone?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the work you've done today. Really good job. And thank you for everybody who's come in. We can see by the number of people that have attended today, just what an important issue this is. But I just want to begin by noting, look, the act of putting a wastewater treatment plant and discharging water continuously into Akaroa Harbour is really, in my view, among the most egregious acts ever committed against the Te Tiriti o Waitangi. I mean, that's my long-held personal belief. I could use stronger language than that, but I think you get the point. So doing nothing was never, ever an option on this. We, the councillors and the mayor, received information on cost increases in the middle of last year that put us in a bit of a position. They were eye-watering, to say the least. And being as responsible governors as we could be, have in good faith asked staff to look at other costs, other options, or the cost of other options, and being open, despite huge reservations from many of us, to reviewing the scheme in every way we could. So in that regard, I'd like to extend my thanks firstly to the Mayor, who's been a real source of support, and with his trademark pragmatism while we step through that. And I want to particularly acknowledge staff who have acted, in my view, with great professionalism and resilience throughout what is a difficult process. Let's be absolutely clear. Every option comes at a significant financial cost, every option comes with some risk, and every option has to come with some form of compromise, but only a land-based scheme will go some way to addressing the egregious act that was committed in the first place, and it is the right thing to do. We've heard some incredibly compelling arguments from different perspectives, and in my view, the most engaged community in the city has once again proven it is the most engaged community in the city, and incredibly well-read and resourced. So I believe that the resolution presented as it stands today, some would call it option one, sort of an option one hybrid, I would think, with adjustments based on what we have heard, is the most pragmatic solution. It reduces costs, as we're obliged to do. It leaves room to make amendments to the scheme, which we've just discussed, including but not limited to reducing the level of storage. And I would urge my colleagues to support the resolution as it stands. And given the great team spirit that we have around this table, I'd be astonished if we weren't unanimous in that. I just want to close by acknowledging all the issues that have been raised by everyone throughout. And I would hope that council and would direct, as much as I can, council staff to be as transparent and engaged with all of the stakeholders as we possibly can, but we just need to get on with it, to paraphrase you, Sam. Kia ora.
Thank you, Sam. I'd like to start by quoting Professor Bronwyn Hayward. This is a difficult and a wonderful decision today. Thank you, Bronwyn. That said, I do feel the weight of responsibility in this decision making. Thank you to everyone who's taken time to join us today and to make our deputations. We see you and we hear you, and you can see that we've all been working together to look for some outcomes that serves the whole community. All eyes are on the opening of our new stadium this weekend. So again, thank you, Bronwyn. I think your reference and the analogy with Akaroa Harbour as Canterbury's Blue Stadium, that really resonates with me, and I think it puts this decision in perspective in terms of the significance of Akaroa Harbour and this decision. And I acknowledge that it's taken a long time to get here, and I acknowledge the frustrations of the locals, but this is important. It needs time to work through, and we require courageous leadership to move this on today. I recognise the views of the local rūnanga. Thank you, Rick, for making time to come and speak with us, and thank you for your ongoing willingness to engage with us. The harsh reality of decisions that are difficult and wonderful is that we cannot please everybody all of the time, but we can work together with our local residents, our local rūnanga, businesses, environmental groups, interest groups to achieve meaningful outcomes that benefit the whole of the community, and we are here for the whole of the community. Thanks Tyrone and Sam for the changes to the resolution. Look, and I'm satisfied that option one with the adjustments is appropriate today. Thank you, Tyrone, for the reasons that you mentioned as to why that's appropriate, and I agree with that, and I think that that can achieve meaningful outcomes that benefit the whole community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank the staff who've put so much work into this, and also the community who have been involved with the discussions for many, many years. We have to consider community views and the relationship of Maori and their culture and traditions when we make this decision, as well as obviously the cost and everything else involved. I just wanted to point out some things that haven't been mentioned. So the reasons I support option one, land irrigation supports the ecological restoration of Robinson Bay as described by deputies today. We can create a new native forest that increases biodiversity. We also right the wrongs of both the building of a wastewater treatment plant on a wahitapu site, as well as the devastation of that native forest back in the late 1800s. And we can also store carbon to assist with our goals around reducing climate emissions rather than increase them. And we would be remiss not to bear in mind the economic activity of Akaroa. which demands the cleanest and safest harbour water we can manage. Doc spoke about the hectares dolphins and the potential outcomes that might have for the dolphins, but also black cat cruises. And Akaroa salmon were here today and clearly told us how land irrigation is the best option to support the ability of Akaroa to be the jewel in the crown of Christchurch. You'll be pleased to hear. So it's very clear that option 1 is the best, and I very fully support that today.
Yeah, I think we all agree that this has gone on for too long, but it's been a very, very thorough process. Staff have been absolutely amazing through this whole time, turned over every rock, answered every question, and after reviewing all the information provided to us over a considerable period of time, I've essentially shifted my opinion from originally supporting an outfall option, and so I'm going to be supporting option 1 today. There's a huge amount of work involved, and I'm really been impressed with the pragmatic approach of mana whenua. I want to congratulate my fellow councillors for fully working to understand the issue, and I think this will be great for the community, the tourism businesses, and our treaty partner. Cheers.
Thank you. I entered this process very much as a city councillor, understanding that, hey, as a city councillor, we've got to do what's best for the city, and was thinking very clearly along the lines of, well, being cost effective and having a cheaper option was probably my leaning, but having engaged as well as we have with mana whenua through this process, and thank you, Rick, for taking us on the journey and explaining the depth of the decision we're making and the history behind it. And through that, I've really weighed the mana whenua position, and that has swayed my thoughts on where to vote today. So I will be supporting option 1. We've heard today that Akaroa in the harbour is incredibly important and supports a great tourist economy and supports what Akaroa is. Hearing described as the blue stadium, I thought that was brilliant. Thank you, Bronwyn. That will be, I think, the front page tomorrow, potentially. So I will certainly, it is good news, and here's hoping the good news can be reported. So I will be supporting option 1, and it's good to see the fine-tuning of the resolutions here today around the extension of that outfall into Children's Bay, potentially, to make that little bit better, getting it further offshore. And the peer review, I think that's wisdom. We probably would have been doing that anyway, I'd imagine, but hey, it's good to get that in the resolution. And thank you, team, for all the work. To thank staff for what they've done would be remiss not to do that, so thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for having the energy to carry on with this, and here's hoping we can get this landed and working and get the solution in place as soon as we can, and try and start that ongoing healing process with the mana whenua, and continue to make Akaroa great.
Pauline, yeah.
Thank you. Look, it's all pretty much been said, and if one thing's happened here, it's actually put our focus right on that gem of Akaroa Harbour, which we've all recognised, and it's a taonga, and extremely important to all of us, and particularly mana whenua. But more than that, it supports tourism and economic benefit it has. It supports the endangered hectares dolphins, but we know that the harbour is not as healthy as it once was. So we need to concentrate and perhaps build out of this. How can we improve the Māori there? This has been noted by the community, by Rick, and the many environmental groups in Akaroa who are committed to improving the biodiversity and health of the harbour and the surrounding environment. They go hand in hand, and they are strongly opposed to the harbour outfall. So today I feel that staff have answered the concerns of those who submitted in opposition to give me the assurance that option 1 is the most robust, environmentally prudent choice. It's safe, it's fit for the future, and actually it has the additional benefits such as restoring the Māori of the native trees. Restoring the native 84 hectares of native trees, the environmental value of the Robinson's Bay land to which it was once cloaked in the beautiful trees before being decimated by the sawmill operation, and Melanie referred to that. This is incredible, and this will also enable our carbon sequestration to aid the council to meet our climate goals. So I'm also comfortable that the staff have obtained correct expert advice with geotechnical, irrigation, soil science, water and land ecology, etc., and particularly addressing that concern from people about the land saturation and the risk of slippage. And I think it's important to do that. And also thank you, Councillor Fields, for putting in that additional resolution about investigating extending that pipe out, because I think that was important too. So today, look, we've got the opportunity to move away from discharging to sea, and we have the opportunity to set an example for future projects. Let's not continue old practices, let's move forward. So I'll be supporting option 1 today, and I'm sure that we'll all be pleased to go forward at last. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you again to staff. You have done an outstanding job, so thank you. And thank you for everyone that has taken part and come here today. I think Councillor Fields put it egregious wrong. We've got a chance to put something right that was done wrong, and that is an incredible thing to be able to do. Not many people in our position have that opportunity, so I think it's one that we should be taking. It's a heavy responsibility, but we are finally going to put a wrong right, which is I'm really, really proud of. But the one thing that really stuck in my mind was when Rick Tanui mentioned they have a legacy of 800 years. I mean, we're not talking about our tamariki, our children here today. We're actually talking about our mokopuna, our grandchildren. What is this going to look like in 50 years, 80 years, 100 years? I think that's really what this council is facing now. Now that we are aware of climate change and the pressures on our environment and our mokopuna, who some may not even be born now, those future generations, what are we putting in that foundation now that will be there in 50 years or 100 years? That's what this council's got to take on board. And I don't think we've really got it yet. Our staff kind of have, you can see their frustration, but what's it going to look like in 100? What are we going to leave? What are we going to start to leave? This is one of those projects. Incredibly proud to be part of it, and I'll certainly be supporting option 1. Thank you.
Yeah, I've struggled through this from the start, and it's been interesting in the handful of years that I've been at council. Luckily, Yanni's not here today, so I can outnumber him for a change. But in the time I've been here, I've never seen a community on a decision so divided that agree on the same thing. So they all agree that the sewage treatment needs change and a massive upgrade in Akaroa. That's undebatable. They also agree, and all of them, because not one of them ever come in and said do something negative to the environment. Every single submitter wants a better outcome for the environment. How we deliver that, on the other hand, does change, and this is where I struggle, because at a per household cost, if you layered this over Christchurch, it is $29 billion. We're out of business. That's it. You cannot afford to live in Christchurch anymore. We have to deliver the infrastructure, not at the cost of this project. We can get away with it once because it's a small environment. Get away with it once. But be warned, this council, we cannot spend like this on other projects. It is out of control. To go up 400% from 2020 to now is just not doable. It's not deliverable. We have to come up with better solutions than we're even going to do. Or going to do, sorry, my grandmother would give me a slap. We have to come up. Yeah, but all the positives were said as to why we would do the project, but we absolutely cannot keep delivering projects that are just so out of whack with the sustainability of the economics. Yes, the sustainability of the environment has to be delivered, but the economics have to match. And we are shortchanging people going into the future if we can't start to solve that problem. You can do it this one time, you're only buying one car, but when you go to buy a whole car yard, if you're overspending at 400%, We cannot afford it. So let's start to get this right in the future. And yeah, I'm glad we're going to do something. Is it the right thing? I don't actually think so.
I'll just wrap it up. Look, I think these are always really challenging situations when you've got a range of different community views. You've got the technical advice that comes through from people. And I've kept thinking through this whole process, thank goodness we were able to keep local water in our control, because actually this wouldn't have happened if it had been taken off us, because we would have had been forced down just one particular path. So how good that we could keep local control on our water. You know, the reality is that we're actually, you know, that this has always been about how we reduce the costs on the agreed system. So, you know, it's sort of unfortunate way that's been conflated into looking at other options. This has always been, actually, we had a cost problem. As a good group of governors, we needed to address that, and that's what we're doing today. The team have still got some more work to do before July. We've put some parameters around it, and I'm actually really pleased that we can get a compromise between the local communities around, actually, well, I'd like to say it's your idea, Phil, but it's the local community as well, you know, extending that pipe from 300 to, you know, whatever that looks like, because actually that makes sense. If we're doing this, we should do it once, do it right. And I did, it was great Bronwyn mentioned the stadium, because at the time we talked about the stadium, when we had cost escalations, I said something flippant like, let's just get on and build the bloody thing. And, you know, I have to say, let's just get on and build this bloody thing, because we're only going to cost more. You know, it's funny, I've canvassed a few of my friends who, you know, are involved in the Akaroa community, and they've just said, can you just make a decision? Whatever the decision is, just get on and build it. And I think that's where we're at today. So, you know, we've got the cost reductions, we'll inform the long-term plan, we're not slowing the team down. You know, there's some really good ideas around, you know, I think it's terrible that we have to fund, or NZTA requiring us to fund something when we're putting in good infrastructure, and I hope we can find a different solution to that, which drives down costs, but also actually helps the disruption in that community. But, you know, in the end, we just need to make some good decisions as a governance body. The worst thing we could do, I think, is actually not make a decision at all. And you see where that happens across other councils. You know, we've got to compromise, we've got to work through this stuff, and hopefully that's where we get to today. But can we just get on and build this bloody thing? So let's put it to a vote. We'll use Votendo. Cool. So that's carried. Okay, thank you, team. So let's move to the next paper, which I'm hoping it's venue Zod Tahi. We'll get them in. So.
London. Did he put a vote in? Idiot.
Okay, so let's can we just, if you're not here for VO, or if you're meeting somewhere else, can you have your conversations outside so we can keep progressing the meeting, please? Doesn't look like anyone's. Kelly, we're gonna get into it. Joss, we're just gonna get into it if we can. Right, venue Zod Tahi's here. The mayor's happy to move it, and I'm happy to second it. We'll take it as read. Are there any questions for Linda?
Ask one, because when I looked at the the draft agenda, there was two other recommendations in the resolution. One, I wonder why they're not there anymore. And one was about restraint and One was to clarify its response to the LOE relating to fiscal restraint and executive remuneration, and the other one was to more clearly reflect climate-related risks, mitigation and resilience considerations with planning and performance expectations over the SIOI period. Is there any harm in putting those back in? And why?
Well, the first one about restraint on executive rem is in the SOI. It was initially, it wasn't. It had been missed just as a
yes, I saw that. But
so
I think,
it's in there now.
okay, and the second one is wanting to clearly reflect more information on climate-related risks mitigation. There's no kind of request for any detail there.
Right. So that was in an initial draft. We socialised the content, excuse me, the climate change content with the climate resilience people, and they're very happy with the content as it is.
Okay, all right, if you're happy, that's okay. I just wonder if it might... Is there any harm in putting it in there, though?
They basically won't change the wording because it's, yeah. So moved and seconded. Any other questions? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Good luck for Friday. How many days now? Now, you're good to go. I just wondered, does anyone have any questions on Christchurch NZ? Because they're scheduled at 2, but if we don't have questions, I'd like to just... Oh, are they? So, does anyone have any questions on the Christchurch NZ one? Linda, is there anything you want to add? No? So, all in favour? Against? That's carried. Do you want to let them know not to come in? Great. So, yeah, we'll just take a stock take of where we're at. Eh?
We'll just see where we've got to. So we've done all of the SLIs, CCOs are all done.
So we're up to, we've got the museum.
Yep.
So what we've got left is 11, which is the long-term plan with Peter. We've got the museum. Who wants to do the museum? Can we do the museum now? Oh, is Peter Langbine here?
He is here.
Yeah, great.
He is here. I can get him. He is here. Look at that.
So this is, just so everyone's clear, this is item 12, the Canterbury Museum Trust Board draft. And we'll just note David and Melanie are on the board. Great. Welcome along.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This paper is the annual return to seek direction on the museum's draft annual plan for next year. It's the standard process where they send us their official version mid-March for a 6-week referral period, and so the paper is seeking Council's response to that. The deadline for going back to the museum, if we follow with the recommendations, is close of business Friday, so it always puts a bit of pressure on us timing with only 6 weeks to do the review. The first 6 items are noting provisions that largely cover the background that's in the detail of the report, and so the following directions after that, as I mentioned, need to be there with them by close of business Friday. Just noting that the recommendation 9 is recommending adding the extra funding for the 1 year that they've requested, but that is only the portion of the total that Council have yet to deliberate on. So I guess the point there is that if the recommendations are passed accordingly, it does not preclude Council finishing its own annual plan process, and part of the reason for going back with the objection is that you haven't had the time to complete your deliberations on your own consultation and hearings, and I'm assuming that you've all learned all there is to know about it with the museum's briefings in February and site tours and so on.
Yep. No, that's really useful, Peter. Thank you for that. Questions? Oh, I've got one from Aaron and then one from Jake and then Tyra.
Yeah, just quickly,
Oh,
so
you're not on the board.
why number 9? Why the extra $1 million?
Oh, look, I sent through you, Mr. Chair. Essentially, it enables them to get through to for the following year, and then for everybody, because there's a number of stakeholders here to go and actually consider what is the best way forward, because it's wrapped up. Remember, there was the consultation in the annual plan, and so because of all of that, this actually enables them to meet their cash flow requirements, keep it moving, and everybody can consider it in a more measured way across the annual plan and the LTP.
So did I read it wrong? Because I thought it was not meant to be that much increase this year.
There's
There's
the capex and the opex, so we've declined the opex.
Yeah.
The capital, B was being very polite. If we do the capital, then I think it triggers the other councils having to do the capital as well. So, and then we'll sort the rest of it out in the annual plan. That's not a guarantee that they'll get money, but that's just that we'll discuss it at the annual plan. Correct. Okay, as we do, very open-minded, Jake.
No, I'm happy with the paper and the recs. I just wanted to congratulate you on a dapper shirt. It's very, you've got clearly very good taste. Very good taste.
And Peter, it's good you can iron yours as opposed to our learned colleague. Hey, look, in all seriousness though, I understand it's your last time presenting to council. And we just want to obviously acknowledge you for your service and thank you for everything you've done for the council. You started here on the 4th of January 2006, I think it is.
That's correct, yes.
So yeah, as the Mayor said, I think only Yanni was here then, which is... but look, thank you for all you've done, and you've been a great asset to council, and you've delivered a lot, and we really appreciate it, and wish you all the best for your your future.
Thank you very much, and yes, it's the big retirement. So it's been an absolute privilege, and so many interesting things in that 20 years. So appreciate the acknowledgement. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great. Very good. Well, no one's going to vote against that now, so we'll put that to the... So it's been moved by Andre and seconded by Mark. All in favour? Against, that's carried. Great, thank you. Okay, can we go now to LTP? Peter, come on up. And we've got a hard 1 o'clock.
Right, okay, look, I'm going to move through some of the housekeeping parts of this quite quickly because it's been a big morning, there's a lot on. There are a whole bunch of documents attached to this report that are really just there for assurance. So you've got approvals that this committee's issued, that Audit and Risk has issued, the letter of expectations from Council, various project plans and timings. I'm not going to do those line by line. They're very much to assure you that the project is being run well, and Audit and Risk last week saw that in that light. What I would like to go to is the update quite quickly on where the work streams are at, and then the level of service review process, which several of you have got a keen interest in. So look, overall, the project is green. Things are going well. Part of that is to do with the clarity we've had early on in the process. Community outcomes have been sorted. You've received the environmental scan. The big ticket items from here are over the next quarter that the financial strategy, which will be based on your letter, and the infrastructure strategy both reach a point where you're comfortable with them and they can be provided to staff to guide the building of the documents. Okay, so between now and the 11th of June, you will have a series of workshops starting on the 30th of this month, where the IS, FS and capital program development all travel together because they're inextricably combined. You'll have an introduction to that on the 30th, then a series of workshops out to the middle of June, and at that point, the waypoint, the test, and Bruce Robertson from ARMC was clear about this, is do we then have the guidance for staff to go building with? Because random, piecemeal, local, down in the weeds thinking is not the way to do this. So the big test is, can we get the strategies and capital program framework landed for the next quarter? After that, it's build, activity plans, levels of service, asset plans, with the objective of coming back to you on the 1st of October with a draft LTP. That gives you October, November, December, and maybe a bit of January to do the discussions, horse trading, substitution required. Now, 654% as the rates trajectory means that we don't have the latitude we normally have. Some things we normally do will not be there. So this is not going to be please everybody kind of LTP. That really takes you through the work streams. The last one is a consultation document. The aim here, and Josh will bless me for this, is that as we get into the body of the LTP, we start a straw man consultation document rather than quickly assemble one at the end. So that way the options that come up, and there will be options, are captured as we go. Local water done well is also a little add-on there, just to assure you that the two, LTP and local water done well, are talking to each other as we go through. The level of service review model, just to set the scene for this, veterans will remember that we often in the past have sat down late in the year and done a line by line of many, many highly technical levels of service. That's at quite operational level. There's been a request this time, both in the letter and from several councillors. I remember Councillor Coco in particular asked, is there a more engaging way we can do this? So what we're proposing here is rather than a big technical line by line quite late in the process, that there's a two-step. There's a what you might call a light touch early, where we come to you looking for a steer, and then we come back to you to reflect that steer with the technical measures and targets and budgets. So that would mean that over the next couple of months, we would come to you not at the level of performance measures, but at the level of services. So this is what this service does. It provides safety around transport. It provides library collections. It provides maintenance of the parks, whatever, and seeks from you guidance on the settings. Do you want this maintained, increased, decreased, or exited altogether? That would be the heads of service and our team sitting with you, stepping through where they're at currently, what they're currently delivering, what it costs, and then guidance from you about less, more, same, depart. Once we get that steer, they go away and build the detailed plan, tune the measures accordingly, tune the budgets accordingly, come back to you with those changes highlighted and say, this is what we've done in response to your steer. So light touch, then the heavy touch at the end, as opposed to wade through measure after measure in October, November. So look, that's the guts of it in plain English of what we'd like to do. We are open to any suggestions you might have. I will say that what we've proposed to you there has also been independently developed by Kaipara, who have run it through their council and with their community, and it's working extremely well for them. That's the feedback we've had from them. That if you start at the level of what does this thing do and what do we want it to do, then go to the measures, it makes more sense. So look, there is a series of slides set out there on how the level of service review will work under that, but that's it in a nutshell. I'm aware that you've got hard times here, timeline, and I think I'd rather open to questions than keep talking theory.
Thank you, Peter. That's good. And I guess the key thing for me, I know we talked, and Jake and I talked about it at agenda setting, is that everyone has to be in the tent on the level of service review. Yep. So no good departments or anyone coming up going, no, we're too special. It's everyone's in this because we've got to make genuine choices. So if you could reiterate that to people, that would be...
We heard the message loud and clear the other day. We'll send it again. Yep. We're all in this boat together.
Yeah. Just chuck it in. Yeah.
I was just saying, not just CCC departments, CCOs as well.
Yep, completely. Very good. Okay, Aaron?
It's just on how far we're willing to go. And it'll be a council decision, but could we, prior to going out for a consultation, can we go to the public in some sort of way, even if it's just an online survey, asking the businesses that council shouldn't be in, because people go, oh, council shouldn't do that, or they shouldn't do this. Just get a list of them, because if we get no feedback, cool. The ship's loaded properly, now let's restack the deck chairs. But if there's some things come up where people start going, oh, or if we get a lot of people saying, hey, council shouldn't be doing so much of that, or that, then it could inform whether we consult on those things. Not saying we would, but can we do that?
We can. There is also some thinking going on with Joss's team about when we get to the October period and we've got a straw man and we know the things that have been proposed for turning down, that we test that with the community as well, as a way of just sort of figuring out the lay of the land on where that lies. So yeah, between the two, pre-engagement it's actually written into the letter that we're not going to simply wait until we consult and say here's a done deal.
Great.
Okay.
I just add one small caveat to that. There are some levels of service that the review probably won't affect, in the sense that they're either mandatory or we're locked into a very long-term contract. And it'll be pretty tough to impact those. The other thing is that there are savings to be made that are not necessarily visible through levels of service. So there could be vacancies, administrative efficiencies, whatever. They may not be visible in the level of service world. There'll need to be two streams here: level of service review and things that are not visible through levels of service.
Great. Okay. David?
Just a quick question. When we look at levels of service, are we also looking at new income streams in and around what we might be able to do, sell some IP, do something along those lines? So as much as we want to cut, can we grow the pie as well?
That's probably better something we refer to the financial strategy, because levels of service don't really have a direct connection with revenue streams. So we could seek the financial strategy to address that.
Great. Okay. We're all happy? Yeah.
It's an excellent report, isn't it?
Yeah, very
really,
good.
really
Yeah.
good. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, and the audit and risk team are really complimentary of the process we're running. So, but I tell you, just one thing to flag though, and they did flag it at audit and risk the other day, was the view. One of the risks for the team running the process is the council not making decisions. So we just need to have that in mind, is that we are going to have to make. We actually can't kick this. We're going to have to make some actual decisions. So we should have that on that. Yeah. Okay. So I'm happy to move this. Pauline's happy to second. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks.
Now let's go into public. Oh yeah, the wastewater. Brent. No. Come up to the table. Yeah. And well, just to note, the mayor's happy to move this, and Tim's happy to second it. The only Brent, we can take it as read. The only thing, can you just talk about how? Oh, and Gavin too. Can you just talk about how we're going to refine this a bit, and we'll be able to put the update, if you've got it now or later, around when the aerators are here.
So
we'll take it as read, but add in what you want.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have got a copy of some questions that were sent in from Councillor Johansson. They're around the aerators and what have you. So, just for your information, the report comes from information that's already been circulated, so it's really just a monthly summary for your information. Is it possible? The questions are: is it possible to be advised the timeframe and milestones for the additional aerators? So, staff have come back with they've finalised the engagement with the aerator supplier. Aerator parts are expected to arrive in Christchurch as of today, following which they will be assembled at the treatment plant. Installation of the aerators into the pond will only be able to commence once the tie-down points have been installed. Council's engaged Kinetics and will formalise the initial engagement with The contractors today to finalise the designs. We're anticipating being in a position to formalise the construction aspects of their contracts this week. Did you want to comment on, you had a comment on the overall time frame, potentially up how many weeks?
To get power into all the sites, it could be up towards 20 weeks, but as we, when we presented, as power's installed, we're about to turn aerators on. There's also the option to be able to put generators on, additional aerators to get them working sooner.
So, short answer is yes, the aerators have been ordered, they are starting to arrive, and the other work is underway. Further questions were around psychosocial responses, so we had some information come back on that. So staff have an outline of a plan around this. This is in response to if there's any delays, and if so, how they're going to be mitigated. There's an outline plan, however, community have requested a trial community drop and is managed by the community for a period of 4 weeks to assess the need and community ideas to address the issues. Gary Watson, who's leading this work, is on leave for a couple of weeks, so this will commence after he's returned, so he can resource the drop-in with the community. After this trial has been completed, council will be briefed on a community response plan in line with good community development principles.
That sounds, that sounds good.
And then there's another question on when are we going to be briefed? How's it being progressed? Do we have any progress?
I think you've covered the main points, so why don't we get that circulated to Yanni as well?
We'll send it out to all councillors
today.
Great.
And now I've just got one from Kelly, and then we're gonna we'll go from there.
When we've got all the aerators, how many will we have, and and then how many will we need once the activated sludge plant is built? And is there a second-hand market for the remainder?
Good question. From memory, we'll have a total of the additional aerators will be 21. I can't recall how many we have existing, but there might be 16. Once the activated sludge is in place, we won't require the aerators. I mean, they're there, so we will be looking to, for a market.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you. So, we're going to move in a second. We have. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Well done. And so we'll get that back again at F&P next month with that timeline in it. So let's go into public excluded. So I'm happy to move it. Pauline's happy to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried. And we'll just do that one paper.